Where was I? Okay, NYPD considers pro-Luigi content terrorism. The great MAGA civil war has started over Elon's support for H-1B visa workers. Hogwatch is back, baby. And now your audio is out of sync with the video. Wait, really? Usually when a chatter says that, it's almost always just one chatter and never a bunch of chatters. So I'm gonna assume that it's not. Yeah, pretty much everyone is saying it's not. Okay, I just got, well, I guess technically it's not that I got one guide. I did call it out, but I didn't lean into it. So that means that I didn't get one guide, but that one guy is getting one guide. It's not he was baiting because of your lips. Oh. Anyway, blasting off, Hasanabi, Goldenavi, NYPD considers pro-Luigi content terrorism. The great MAGA civil war started over Elon's support for H-1B visa for workers. Hogwatch is back, baby. Get in now. Yeah. I think it's off by a few milliseconds. Dude, I should have never bought any chatters fucking studio headsets. This socialism is. What am I doing? I'm literally making it harder for myself. Like you have chatters in here. You have chatters in here who get the studio headsets only so they can hate better. You know what I mean? They're like, excuse me, I can hear your, like, I can hear an asshole clenching. It's Hispanophobic that you're not giving out gifts also on Dia de Reyes, January 6th. I miss socialismus. Did you see Aiden Ross streaming with Drake yesterday? I did. He had a lot of like corny ass moments. I think he like was being weird about XQC, which I thought was strange. Daily Wire drama Brett Cooper has been replaced by her best friend who reportedly took acting classes that literally sound and imitate Brett Cooper exactly. Oh, that's sick. We'll take a look at that. Now that I've seen Roided Out Hassan, I've realized what we're missing out on. Get on trend now, old man. Wait, what do you mean Roided Out Hassan? This is not that much more brolic than me. I could, if you put my head over the Venom body, that is what I would look like if I was roided out. Where's Aiden Ross streaming? Aiden Ross went back to Kick, predictably. He said he was going to have a falling out, and I think he wanted to get a better contract from Kick. So he created some drama, said he wasn't going to stream on Kick any longer, and now he's back. He's back on Kick. And Kick rewarded him by making him do
like a feral
Ross Drake collab, as a matter of fact. What is this?
I'm like a feral bobcat, fueled by fettuccine alfredo and ketamine. Holla at your boy. Some of y'all spend too much time looking in the rearview mirror than the destination ahead, and you gonna get caught up in traffic, son. I'm like okra in the sense that if you try to cook me any other way, I taste like snot and doo-doo, but I'm already fried and golden and perfect, so go ahead and roast me any way you want to. You can't roast perfection. Yeah, I might be a Discord mob, but I call your girl my kitten and she meows on command. I'm trying to play Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3 and drink Capri Sun with some ex-convicts. Holla at me. They tried to put me in a psych ward, and guess what? It was actually a really rehabilitating experience, and I highly recommend it if you're going through something. If you're homeless, buy a house, broke ass.
Got him. I love these motivational videos. I don't know why. Especially even the likes of Brett Kreischer talking about how like the first one I ever saw was when Brett Kreischer was like, if you're an alcoholic and you're worried about like quitting, just don't. Nobody likes a quitter. Just don't quit. Why does your audience send you white humor only? Because my audience is white as fuck. I love the Hope Corps shit. Is Bert not Brett? You mean Bert? Did I say Brett Kreischer? I don't know, man. I don't care. Calm down. USA versus USSR arguments have evolved. Yeah, I saw this. This is not an argument. This is utter domination. USA made League of Legends. USSR did not make League of Legends. Conclusion, USSR better. Yeah. I guess technically you could say that the Sino-Soviet split is the reason why it's actually now a Chinese, it's under Chinese governorship. Like technically, League of Legends is now owned by the Chinese. So I guess they're just kind of using it as a weapon against our people. Like when you think about it. What is this?
People keep correcting me, telling me that it's Cybertruck and not Tesla truck. I don't fucking care! I don't care what it's called! I hate them! I hate them! I need them off the streets. I need them off the road. I need them on the highway. I need them out of my town. I need them out of my country. Fuck! I'm so sick of them. I'm so sick of Tesla trucks.
Dude, this is so true. It's like, it's not only an eyesore and incredibly uggo. By the way, Mishma, thank you for the 50 gifted subs. That's crazy. Casually just dropped a 50 bomb and I didn't even see it. And nobody even pointed it out. What's happening in this community? Money changed us, okay? Mishma, thank you for the 50 big ones. The thing I was gonna say about the Cybertrucks in general is that not only are they an eyesore, they are literally illegal to drive in Europe, as far as I understand, because there is no way that they would pass any safety standards. The fact that they have these like jagged, sharp edges automatically make them a hazard to begin with. And also on top of that, it doesn't seem to have like real crumple zones. I don't know what's going on there. I don't understand how this car is allowed to be driven on the roads. I don't understand how we have decided in the United States of America to go back to a Ford Pinto style governance. I don't understand how there was so much back and forth in terms of cars that you can purchase that would kill you. Okay? Cars that you can purchase that could kill you was a thing of the past. Okay? And we collectively as a society decided that no, you shouldn't be able to buy a car with the full knowledge that it can just like genuinely devastate you. Like it has to abide by certain safety standards. And I don't know why. I'm way more concerned about the F-150 being the most sold vehicle for a decade than the few Cybertrucks that at least have better visibility. I mean, they're really bad. Their chassis is ass. It breaks regularly. There's no way that it has any sort of towing capacity whatsoever. It's quite literally welded on to, I believe, an aluminum chassis. So they constantly if you off-road it a little bit, they break. So it's not capable of doing any number of the different things that it's supposed to be doing. It's basically a bad truck. At least overall, the F-150 is a durable vehicle. Buddy, the F-150 has been through validation and testing on like these dumpster fires. Exactly. Like the F-150 is ginormous and it should have never gotten to that size. Okay? I agree with that. If you were to tell me, Ford abused cafe standards and basically created these monstrous trucks, and the smallest truck that you can purchase from Ford is basically an F-150. Well, you got the Ranger and the Maverick, but overall, the fact that like the F-150 is ginormous in size, okay, and it is a terrifying tank like demon on the road, and it is the most sold vehicle in the United States of America, is definitely a problem. But at least it does truck things. You might actually purchase it because you're a soccer mom. You might purchase it because you are the manager, or you are a contractor, but you don't actually do any of the construction work, but you want to have a sick car when you drive over to the lot. Okay? Many people do that. Many people buy it just for groceries. Having said that, however, at least if push comes to shove, it can do truck-like things. Okay? It can do truck-like things. It can tow stuff. It can, if you want to, off-road. It's a thing that you can do. There are truck things you can do with this truck. It also has gone through numerous safety standards. The Cybertruck, the Tesla truck, not capable of doing truck-like things. And I don't even understand how they are. I don't even know how they're allowed to be operational on the road. All the while, we can't even have fucking Chinese EVs in this goddamn marketplace. We can't have K trucks. We can't have better pickups, Japanese trucks that are significantly smaller but have literally the same size bed, despite making up half the size of the truck in and of itself. So it's very frustrating. It's especially frustrating because like I've been looking at possibly buying a larger vehicle, or leasing a larger vehicle rather, because obviously the Taycan in and of itself is too small. That's just it. My lease is about to be up, but it's frustrating because like I want to get a SUV, or I want to get a truck, but they're so fucking large. They're so goddamn large, and it's very frustrating. So I don't know what to do. I really, really, really want a 4Runner. I want it so bad. The 2025 4Runners unfortunately have been pushed back in production. That is my dream car. Highest trim level, off-road baby. Bust that shit out. 4Runners go to my brother-in-law has one with golden, same size as Kaya. 4Runners also have a third row as well if you want that, which is crazy because the Land Cruiser doesn't. I don't know what the fuck Toyota was thinking in the 2025 Land Cruisers. They literally have cooked the Land Cruisers in an effort to sell the Lexus version of the Land Cruiser more. They have basically cooked themselves on that front. I don't know why. I don't know why anyone would buy a Land Cruiser instead of a 4Runner in 2025. So rural cosplayer, you know what's really funny? Yeah, they do have a hybrid. The 4Runner hybrid is what I want to purchase. What's really interesting about that is that, yeah, the Lexus GX 2025 is pretty sick too. But I don't really like Lexus. I like Toyotas. I want a Land Runner or a Land Cruiser. I want a Land Cruiser from like 1978. Okay, that's what I want. That's my dream car. Like the FJ. What is it? Like the FJ something. Those cars are fucking fantastic. I know Lexus are Toyotas. I just get annoyed that it says Lexus on it and not Toyota. Maybe it's because I am a freaking Menadad. Okay, it is my most Menadad quality. Even though Menadads love Lexus as well. I just think that the Toyota sticker gives me pride and joy, okay? I would rather have a Toyota sticker on a car than a Lexus sticker, even if it had the Lexus specs, because obviously it's a much better trim. Watch the Doug DeMira video with the 4Runner. He didn't buy one, no. He tried out they're not available yet. Trust me, I know. I've been watching it. A 400... Oh, this is a 400 horsepower Coyote V8 equipped with first generation Ford Bronco. Yeah, this is sick. The Resto-modded Broncos are incredible. I was thinking about potentially getting a Resto-modded EV Bronco. The problem is, like, I don't know. Anyway, whatever. I hate doing Hasanabi and dog Kaya Piker stun and new photo in the Porsche Taycan in LA traffic. I mean, this is literally how it is when I have Kaya in the car. I want to get a larger car specifically because, like, one, for Kaya, and two, I want to get a larger car because, like, when I go do stuff, you know, when I go out into the world, when I go to like stream or whatever, I want to be able to pack 5 people into the fucking car. And the Taycan is just virtually impossible to pack 5 people into the car with. At least 4 people in Kaya. And Kaya is basically the size of a person. So, how about an International Scout? It's not even out yet. You guys are literally talking about cars that are not out yet. The Scouts are sick. But anyway, we'll see. Rivian SUV support your boss. So you want to limit people's rights to bear arms, but you still want to bear arms with no regulations, as can be proven by Kaya? Yes. Get an Escalade? No. An Escalade V would hit. I have seen the Escalade EVs. They're kind of sick. I don't even understand how you can have a literal tank be an EV. It has to be like 50 miles. I don't get it. Why do you lease instead of buy? The reason why I lease cars instead of buying them is because, well, one, it's a depreciating asset, not to get all Econ 101 on your ass, but the real reason is because electric vehicles have outdated technology and fall out of fashion fairly quickly. So, like, because it's in its infancy stage, and Megaphonics and Fango Lives will get up my ass for saying this, but it's 100% true. Like, new battery technology renders old battery technology virtually useless. So I don't see any reason to fucking purchase an electric vehicle. Like, the Taycan that I got was what, like 120K, the Taycan 4S. I leased it. The value of the 2022 Taycan 4S right now is like 40 grand. Okay. It's just like, the Cybertrucks are going 50K below sticker price at this moment. People bought the first edition. An electric G-Wagon, loads of headroom. Yeah, I know. I kind of want an electric G-Wagon, but it's the same exact issues with the electric G-Wagon. When you buy an EV first edition vehicle, you're paying 10K, 20K over the sticker price for no fucking reason. You're paying 10K, 20K over the sticker price. It's going to be like $180,000, but then it's going to be literally worth 70 grand in like a year or so. So that's what the problem is. 1980s Toyota pickup with an EV swap would be sick with a John Brown Hunting Club drip. I mean, yeah, that is something that the problem with the EV swaps, I'll just say this is the last thing I'm going to say before moving on to the news, okay? The problem with an EV swap in general is that if you get a resto-modded car like that, which is something that I really desire, something that I love. I've wanted the Ford F-100 Illuminator, as you guys know. It's fucking amazing. It's a concept car at this point. You can only purchase the battery if you want to, and the battery, I think itself is like 400 grand or some crazy shit. It's not a real thing. But The problem with Resto-mods in general is that they're janky, they're finicky, they will break. And I am not a car guy. Trucks in and of itself are already janky and finicky, and they do sometimes break. Resto-mods ultimately are a problem. You can't have a Resto-mod that's anything but a Sunday driver. You can't have that as your daily, I fear. And although I don't drive that much, oh, the Grenadiers are sick too. I know. Do you guys know what the Grenadiers are? Hold on. I'll show you the Grenadier. Does Doug DeMuro have a Grenadier video? He probably does. He has a video for everything. And it's also, for all the fucking specs, this is just like one rich guy. This is a rich guy, some rich fucking like chemical petroleum billionaire that literally was like, I'm going to make basically like a OG Land Cruiser slash real, you know. Look at this.
Today's video is brought to you by Cars and Bids, my online company, Ineos. Now, the founder of Ineos is Jim Ratcliffe. He's a British billionaire who has nostalgia for the original old school Land Rover Defender. And I guess he thinks the new...
I think the old school Land Rover Defender is fucking mint. How is that street legal? It looks like a child death machine. These are literally smaller than Escalades, dude. What are you talking about? The American perception of vehicles are so goddamn warped. Like when you look at like any like mid-size SUV in the United States of America, you literally go, this would be the largest car anyone has ever seen on the road. Meanwhile, for America, it's like small.
Defender is a little too soft, too
gross. Disgusting. Look at what they've done to our boy.
Luxury to high tech. So he set about creating a brand new car that had the ethos of the original Defender, and that is the Grenadier. Now, despite the look of the Grenadier, this doesn't share any components with the old school Land Rover Defender. It just has a similar look and a similar purpose, to be an off-road focused basic SUV without all the luxury bits that so many modern ones have. As
Jan, new topic please. How much more of ape men are we going to be debating cars? Grow up, everyone. It's just a subjective choice from getting point A to point B. Brilliant. Brilliant take, chatter.
For the name, the Grenadier, apparently it is named after the pub in London where the idea of it was conceived, the Grenadier pub, and hence the Ineos Grenadier, a very British story. And a few other basics. Here in the United States.
Anyway, woke of the day. I know, classic. I have to buy Toyota. Japan lost almost 1 million people this year soon. They will be extinct. This on, get it while you can. Listen, you know my dream car is a fucking 1997 Toyota Crown, okay? I want a 1997 Toyota Crown and I want a Hilux. Those are the cars I want. Also, no, Toyota's not going extinct. Japan might go extinct, but Toyota will not. When you were in London, did you go to the Water Rats pub where Marx frequented and lived above for a while? No, I did not. Yeah, Toyota Crowns in the West are very different than the Toyota Crowns. A Crown, did y'all have that in Turkey? No, we have Corollas. I grew up with Corollas. Anyway, 7-time Formula 1 champion Lewis Hamilton sold his Pagani Zonda and is on his classic arc. I support your old school era. I think I have a sneaking suspicion that if electric right now, all right, I'm going to make a take. It's Hasanabi take time. Are you ready for this? Hasanabi take time. Hold on. Let me get it started too. Okay, hold on. Electric vehicles are on a downtrend, while the Chinese EV market is basically capturing the rest of the globe and sucking up the entire car market in its in general. Here in the United States of America, it seems that people are no longer as invested in electric vehicles. It's now being seen as a former fascination. Battery technology is obviously one of the major issues, and these cars depreciate quite dramatically. Having said that, however, there is one thing that could absolutely dominate the EV market. If you wanted to bring EVs back in a big way, what you must do is move away from the futuristic looking duck bill style pill-shaped vehicles. What you must do is create electric vehicles that look retro. Retro-futurism is the way. Give me some fucking El Caminos. Give me some old school Lincolns. God damn it, give me a wooden station wagon with an EV. Give me a 1970s looking Oxy Bronco with an EV kit in it. Give me a Ford 100 Illuminator with an EV battery package in it. Give it to me. Make this shit analog. No more massive fucking iPad screens everywhere. You need to have tactile, functional buttons in the cars. That is why I love Toyota still. Give me old vehicles that are retro from the 80s and the 90s that have an EV battery package in it, and you will bring back EVs in a major way. And also, last but not least, make sure that these cars also have sound. If one wishes to actually make others hear the sound of an engine, you can simulate whatever sound you want. That's right. Give me a goddamn EV that looks old and also has speakers outside so people can hear the fucking engine, and it's not any of that fucking random alien spaceship sounds, and I will purchase it. No, none of that shit, okay? I want to hear a fucking real engine purr. Now, it's really interesting because there is a car company that is doing what I've demanded, basically. It's Dodge. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Dodge is bringing back its Challengers, and it will or maybe it's Chargers, sorry. Dodge is going to, the 2024 Dodge Charger is going to be an electric vehicle, okay? And not only is it going to be an electric vehicle, but it also will have speakers so you can actually hear the engine, like a simulated engine sound. The problem is it's still very much pill-shaped, and I hate that. I fucking hate that. I hate, like, look at how pill-shaped all these goddamn cars are. That is the only benefit that with the exception of the Scout, even though the Scout is also kind of pill-shaped as well. The Scouts look kind of cool. But they all want to make their cars look so, like, I don't know. Everybody wants to make their cars look cool. They want to make their cars look futuristic, and I don't care about that. The i5M looks kind of sick though. I didn't even know that this was like that. But this looks dope. In terms of futurism, this looks kind of cool too. But overall, wait, Chevrolet Corvette EV and SUV? Yes, I know the E-Series Grandeur is exactly what I'm looking for. This is precisely what I mean. The problem is this is a concept car and it's not going to be out. I don't think this is a real car that you can purchase, okay? They just made one to celebrate. Hassan, car talk is so shit I'm dying. How are your car takes as so my shit I'm dying? How are your car takes as base as your political views? It's because I'm an old man and we're around the same age, and that's probably why you also like the tactile feel of analog shit rather than the cheap iPad that is easily replaceable, even though it runs into electrical complications and also can be manipulated with software updates that you might have to pay for down the line like a goddamn DLC. It is profit-seeking all the way down. Cars, throughout most of history, have been a thing that you purchase and can wear and tear all the way down into the ground, where you can drive it for fucking 40 years if you want to, if you take good if you maintain decent upkeep, okay? The problem is there's a reason why they don't have those buttons anymore inside of the cars. There's a reason why everything is relegated to the fucking iPad, even though it literally makes no sense. You have to look at the fucking iPad while you're driving. That is because it's cheaper. It's cheaper overall because all of those buttons are separate parts that you have to manufacture and purchase and replace in cars and whatnot, even though screens are obviously very distracting. There is a necessity for tactile buttons because you're supposed to be focusing on the fucking road while you're tweaking the buttons. You don't have to touch shit. I mean, you don't have to look at shit. You could just use buttons. Tactile feel is an absolute necessity. It's like very frustrating. It is incredibly fucking frustrating to me. I don't like it. And it's something that all the Chinese EVs have too. They love those bells and whistles. They have so much extra bloatware in the Chinese cars. And I don't give a shit about it. I'm sure that, like, I mean, the market obviously responds positively to it. Clearly, Chinese EVs dominate, partially because of their price. But people do like all the bells and whistles. Like, they love that, you know, you have the flashy LED. You have the flashy LED headlights that can write stuff, like that can write your name or whatever. Like, I don't give a shit, dude. Give me a car that looks cool. Give me a car that fucking looks cool, is old school, and has a decent engine in it. And I want like you know, a level of trim that I am comfortable with, that invokes luxury, like my Toyota Camry Sport Edition. You know, I just don't care. I don't care about like all of the other bells and whistles. Hassan criteria for a good car: looks cool, buttons. Yeah, I'm not a big car guy. I'm not a big car guy. I want the cars to look cool. Anyway, and properly aim the LED lights or mandate BMW's light splitting tech. Why not get a Prius? Like, actually, because it doesn't fuck. Like, Priuses don't fuck. Everybody knows that. They don't fuck. Do you know how to ride a bicycle? Yes. Anyway, on that note, let's get right into it. We're going to be talking about MAGA world and drama and hogwatch, some of the many things that we like and enjoy on this broadcast. If LA was walkable, would you still buy a car? My dream is to live in a world where none of the major American cities have any need for cars. Okay, that would mean walkable cities and also public spaces that you can go to, but most importantly, reliable public transit. New York is the only thing that comes close to that. But yeah. All right, uproar breaking inside the MAGA world over H-1B visas and foreign workers, ladies and gentlemen. We're diving right into it. As you guys know, I covered this extensively yesterday, but we must cover it even further because the MAGA world has already seen its own share of political drama. Let's take a look.
Tonight, as President-elect Donald Trump is preparing for a widespread immigration crackdown when he takes office 25 days from now, we're seeing a crack between some of his top advisors and his MAGA base. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are both facing major blowback from their own supporters for not only backing, but encouraging offering more visas to highly skilled foreign workers. Over the Christmas holiday, Musk posted this online saying, "Think of this like a pro sports team. If you want your team to win the championship, you need to recruit top talent wherever they may be." He later added, "I'm referring to bringing in, via legal immigration, the top 0.1% of engineering talent as being essential for America to keep winning."
So the reality of the matter is, I don't have an issue with H-1B visa programs. I don't have an issue with migration at all. Okay, migration is what has kept America so dominant. Okay. The problem with how migration is done, however, or the major reasons as to why people like Elon Musk like immigration in general, is because it creates a alternative secondary labor market that is reliant on maintaining their job. Because under normal circumstances, if you're a regular American, right? If you're a regular ass American, you have a couple pressures that keep you at your shitty job. Those pressures are the fact that you don't have health care if you lose your job. That's number one. Another pressure that you have is that you said you'll react to my videos if I ask you for the 100th time. No, dude, I was being sarcastic. Stop. What? H-1B is fucking ducking horrible. Rusty Twitch TV. I'm going to get to the problems with the H-1B visa system. But hold on. So if you're a regular American citizen, okay, you go to school, you go to college, right? You take on major student loans. You're taking on a shit ton of debt just to be able to become a more productive, more valuable worker. And in the end of that process, now you have to pay off those loans. So there are a couple different external pressures that keep you at your shit end job. A job that your educational attainment does not require you to take on in normal circumstances, but now you're desperate. Okay? Obviously, one of those reasons is how expensive college is and all the student loans that you have to take in order to even go there. That traps you. The second reason, that is perhaps the more significant reason, the more important reason, is that if you leave your job, you don't have health care because your health care is tied to your job. But for our endlessly parasitic, capital-owning class, that level of exploitation is not enough, okay? As profit rates have a tendency to decline, our capital owners look to the more malleable aspects of value, more malleable aspects of commodity production, which is always going to be the labor force. That's not enough, so they either A, move manufacturing overseas to a developing nation in an effort to draw out higher profit margins in general, even though that is a logistical nightmare overall. It still is infinitely cheaper at the end of the day for people who want to produce goods at the lowest possible number, produce goods at the as cheaply as possible. Another thing that they also do is take advantage of migrant workers. H-1B visas are supposed to be for these incredibly talented workers that are highly skilled and have gotten, they've gotten all this education. And it's understandable that we have this mentality towards the brain drain. It's what has kept America competitive. It helps improve scientific research in the country. There are many different benefits for the H-1B visa program. The problem, or rather not the problem, but the additional benefit, the real benefit for the likes of Elon Musk, however, is that outside of the two pressure factors that I've mentioned for documented American laborers, there's a third component that is even more consequential. It opens up a new avenue of exploitation because migrant workers, obviously due to the currency exchange, are always going to, if they want to bring money back to their home nations, are going to be they're going to be more willing to take a pay cut. Okay, that's number one. But number two, perhaps more consequential, is that if they lose their jobs, they don't just lose healthcare, they get fucking deported. Okay, and this is precisely the reason why Elon Musk and many other billionaires love the H-1B visa program, because this way you get to bring in a migrant worker that is competent, that is well educated, that will work for much cheaper than the American worker, okay, and is also tremendously leveraged in the eyes of, or rather, Elon Musk has tremendous leverage over the likes of an H-1B worker, and therefore that H-1B worker is endlessly exploitable, okay, much more exploitable than even the documented U.S. citizen laborer. Now, the solution to this problem is to ensure that there is a normalization and a proper processing to ensure that you can't actually depress wages for H-1B workers and keep the wages in the marketplace even. This, of course, is considered socialism or some kind of like price enforcement, some kind of wage enforcement, which is not even a part of the conversation. Not a single person will allow that to happen. Okay. And that is precisely why we have arrived at this major problem for a lot of Americans who are like, well, I want to get a job, especially in the tech sector where there's been hundreds of thousands of layoffs. What the fuck is going on? Elon Musk is still trying to fill these roles. Elon Musk is still trying to fill these roles with migrant workers rather than American laborers. And therein lies the major issue. Okay. And yes, by the way, this is my tweet that I screenshotted that Lolo posted, just so you know. And I can't believe he posted that and he got 46,000 fucking likes. This son of a bitch. I should have posted it. It is the funniest tweet I've seen. He sent me his screenshot. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, dude, I also screenshotted it. I sent him back the same fucking tweet. I was like, this is hilarious. I'm constantly insulted on this platform. So there it is. Therein lies the major problem. Now, I obviously have been gloating a little bit on the timeline over this process because I think it's very funny. A couple things I want to point out. Okay. Racist people are so funny. They thought the billionaire man doesn't just want cheaper labor, just like they foolishly think they're superior to a dude born into abject poverty just because the dude is brown. There's an air of entitlement and superiority that a lot of Americans feel over the rest of the world because of American empire. They think like they did it. You didn't do it. Okay. You're just a beneficiary of it to a certain degree, and you're not even a good enough beneficiary of it because all the death and destruction that we subjugate the developing nations to do not even come back bountiful to the American society, to the average American labor aristocrat. Okay? That's what's so funny about it, is that part of the reason why our GDP is so high is because there are so many expensive middle managers in every process. For-profit healthcare is one of the best glaringly obvious examples of this. There is no real service that they're providing, and it should not exist. Okay? It's a concept that literally only churns profit for people. That's it. It's a money-making operation. It doesn't have any real service. It doesn't offer anything. Like, that's not a real concept at all. We just made up an entire fucking industry specifically designed to make things more costly, and they certainly do make things more costly, and it makes a lot of money for people who are shareholders. Okay? And we've basically done this with every industry. So the second tweet I had, which apparently a lot of right-wingers agreed with, which I thought was strange, is the elites destroyed schooling in this country for profit. They treat teachers like dirt. Kids get shot in school. Then they tell you college is not important and it can't be free. And now you're sitting around mad about H-1B visas. Lamau, you've been robbed blind. Ashley St. Clair said, never thought I'd see the day where I agree with Hassan. A bunch of right-wingers saw this tweet and were like, oh my God, I agree. Which is interesting. It's very interesting. I guess when you frame it with elites rather than capital-owning bourgeois or whatever, oh my God, you're becoming jank? Yeah, totally. This means I agree with right-wingers and not vice versa. I think I'm on the opposite side of that spectrum, where right-wingers are agreeing with me. I'm not agreeing with right-wingers. I am noticing contradictions that other people are also noticing and using that to describe my worldview in a way that people can comprehend. This is what I do. It's called agitative propaganda. Okay? That is the major difference here. Isn't this their argument for school choice? Elites destroyed schooling in this country for profit is literally a argument against school choice. Okay? If I didn't know you, I would have assumed you were right-wing just by the use of the word elites. So elites here is obviously a substitute for capital owners, not like Jews or I don't know, woke they them baristas. Okay, like the actual elites, the actual people who are in control of capitalist society, capital owners. Okay, just so you understand. I mean, everyone here understands it, and the point still stands. The point remains: the elites destroyed schooling in this country for profits. It is true. Part of that is school choice, voucher programs, and rampant privatization. Okay? That is how it works. And LeBron is the one fucking elite that hasn't done that. He literally actually funded a public school when he had the opportunity to fund a charter school. That is one of the many different reasons why I love LeBron James and will glaze him endlessly. I can't believe you just activated my trap card by bringing up LeBron while we were talking about schooling in this goddamn country. Put some respect on the goat, okay? Put some respect on the goat, okay? Pour some honey. It's literally true. You can shit on LeBron James for anything else, okay? You can't shit on him for this. But ultimately, what is important for you to comprehend here is that this is the truth, okay? This is the truth. The truth is that rampant privatization has absolutely gutted and destroyed American public education, and that is a major component as to why American laborers are no longer competitive in the global market. And there are two ways out of this. Either you try to engage in isolationist policies, or you rapidly improve the educational infrastructure in this country and make it as egalitarian as possible in order to yield the best possible results. Because you don't fucking know what people's ceilings are. This is part of the problem with racist sentiment. There are many issues with white supremacist attitudes, but this is a major problem. You have no idea what a kid growing up in Southside Chicago, what their potential actually looks like. When you rob them of that potential ahead of time, you'll never know. Okay? That's it. You will never know. And in that process, because we're trying to eke out profits from every corner, from every sector possible, we actually end up making our labor force less competitive in the global marketplace. And that's why, inevitably, countries like China will thrive in this marketplace because they don't fuck around with education. This is why it's always hilarious when Donald Trump, in the same conversation, will say something along the lines of abolishing the Department of Education. And in the same breath, without a shred of irony, will turn around and say, look at Norway and Chinese education. It's so much better than us. I wonder why. Perhaps it's because they understand the importance of education across the board. So there's two ways out of it, which is to endlessly engage in profit seeking while simultaneously push harder and harder, engage in more isolationism, and continue rampant exploitation and refuse to educate your broader populace and become dumber as a society. A dumber society is easily controlled, easily manipulated, so it still benefits the capital owners in general as they rely on better educated migrant workers that are more exploitable. Or you can continue migration while also simultaneously ensuring that every American gets the proper education all the way up to the college level, make college education free in general, and stop fucking listening to dumbass elites like Elon Musk who take advantage of that division in American society to sell you a lie. I am reminded of the Vivek Ramaswamy moment where he wore that fucking Texas jacket and the big cowboy hat. Let me see if I can find it. This is all it takes for many dumbass Americans. All it takes is for a guy like this, who is a hedge fund pharma bro, right? Who is one of the major villains of American society that has robbed regular Americans blind. All it takes is for this dude to put the fucking Texas jacket on, put a big ass cowboy hat on, and go, I don't like trans people. I think trans people are robbing you blind. I don't like them Mexicans. And then everybody goes, you're right, King. American history is riddled with people like this. Okay. One of the greatest examples is Ronald Reagan, who was literally an actor. Okay. This is precisely the Ronald Reagan method. Fake populist bullshit. Make Americans divided, make them focus on racial boundaries that don't disrupt the capitalist pecking order, and you can rob them blind. Vivek Ramaswamy set us Indian Americans back 2 decades by doing this bootlicker shit. Yeah, it's also kind of funny because as far as like the right-wing BJP Indian Twitter, they're still blaming other Indians, not a shock, who happen to be leftist. So that is also hilarious because the metric ton of racism is not coming from other Indians who happen to be of a lower caste or happen to be leftist. The metric ton of racism is coming from white people in general who literally just despise Indians and don't care. Don't make the don't distinguish between like the good kind and the bad kind. Okay, that's not a real concept. There's never been a real concept. That will never be a real concept. That's not a thing that racists do. It turns out racists don't actually distinguish between non-white people all that much. They just say, oh, you're non-white and therefore you're lesser. Anyway, but let's get back to the CNN coverage on the matter.
He's talking about H-1B visas, which allow employers to hire highly skilled foreign workers.
Do you think funding in liberal arts, humanities, and social sciences should be reduced and redirected to STEM programs, or do you believe those programs are important in many ways for society and development? Of course, I believe those programs are very important in many ways for society and development. Yes, I think this like hyper focus on STEM is so hilarious because one, it never strikes people as odd that those who actually fucking LARP as STEM lords themselves also come from liberal arts degrees with like theater majors, okay? The likes of Steven Crowder and Tucker Carlson, right? And secondly, what's additionally hilarious about it is that they are trying to make the STEM field into serfs. That's why there was so much focus on comp sci in the late 2010s. And look what happened. Now every comp sci major is driving fucking Uber because they all got fired. Okay? They literally were like, oh yeah, learn to code, learn to code, learn to code. All you motherfuckers in this chat, learn to code. Look what happened when people learn to code. There was a very deliberate goal there to flood the marketplace with a lot of new comp sci majors in this like blossoming field so that they could artificially lower the wages in general because it became a more competitive field. And then they made you basically train the AI that would inevitably replace you. Because at the end of the day, capital owners are always going to look for ways of outsourcing your labor to cheaper substitutes. The cheaper substitutes that can actually do the same job anyway. And then basically find the most exploitable employee, H-1B visa employees in this circumstance, because they don't want to get fucking deported, to do your job once you are fired. What do you have to say about societies that have arguably surpassed America, particularly China, that have huge emphasis on STEM and like zero humanities majors compared to America? That's wrong. The idea that like there is no humanities majors in China is objectively incorrect. What are you saying? Countries like China quite literally fund art programs. They fund humanities all the time. They don't just fund humanities, they fund art programs in general. It's not, what you're saying is not correct about China, nor is it correct, nor was it correct about the USSR, for example. It's so funny to say that like there isn't robust literature and robust art in a nation as large as China. Anyway, so the vast majority of people specialize in STEM fields. I may be mistaken, but many people specialize after Gaokao, and they, compared to America, go into STEM. They might have more of a STEM focus in like in Turkey as well. They might have more STEM focus no matter what until like higher education. I don't know enough about Chinese education, but to say that the Chinese government does not fund humanities and don't have like a robust humanities sector or robust art sector is entirely incorrect. You can't be serious about China art programs. Are you sponsored by them or something? Guys, I'm going to be very serious when I say this. I think your understanding of what's going on in China is a little bit warped. I don't know, like if you think, first of all, America funds art programs. Every government funds art programs, okay? Just so you understand. It's a matter of how much you fund art programs and humanities, okay? The idea that there is a government out there on this planet right now, as it stands, that focuses zero on funding the humanities and funding art is ridiculous. And not only that, but humanities are complementary to STEM in general. Okay, art is important. Humanities are important. Okay. The idea that like 100% full-blown STEM is the way to go is also silly. I'm sorry, you are wrong. What is this? What is this? Oh, ow my balls. He sent me a Reddit post. What? What the fuck is this? In China, young graduates are selling their knowledge on the streets, facing a difficult job market. Highly educated Chinese have found a new way to monetize their degrees, knowledge street vending. What? I never said that first of all, I didn't say that the Chinese job market for the youth is good, for the record. We're talking about something entirely different. But I don't know how this has, sorry, I was reading chat. I don't know how this has anything to do with what I'm talking about. If we're talking about education and the fact that, you know, the Chinese government does fund art and humanities, they still do that. China has the biggest proportion of STEM majors out of any nation in the world. Graph in the link. I was mistaken, though, regarding America having a lot of humanities majors. It's middle of the pack. Wait, oh, you got clapped while I was in the process of reading your take. I'm a Mexican aerospace engineer in a border city in Mexico. I have peers that have gone to LA to work for a certain defense company that have said they feel stuck with zero negotiating power, having borderline management role with low pay, all because they don't want to lose the visa. Yeah, of course. Let's see what the rest of what Delayed Autistic Guppy said was. Okay, he said, World Graph, I was mistaken though regarding America having lots of humanities majors is in the middle of the pack instead of STEM. Many people go into business and finance. Okay. Okay, so as far as the highest number, if you're looking at this proportionally, I don't know what percentage of Chinese STEM graduates, because this is totality. Of course, China and India in totality are going to be much higher in terms of STEM majors. China and India are much larger countries. I don't know what percentage is as far as like total percentage goes. Percentage of total graduates in STEM fields. China is at 41%. Russia is at 37%. Germany is at 36%. USA is at 20% in the year 2020. Okay. Russia, Germany, Iran has 33%, India has 30%, France has 26%, Mexico has 26%, USA has 20%. Okay. Overall, this still means that the broad majority of every nation, including Chinese graduates, are still in the humanities and art. As far as a proportion of total graduates, the ones that go into STEM fields is still at 41%, when Chinese STEM field is the highest percentage. That means 59% are still humanities and arts graduates. Do you understand? Or business, finance, and the like. Wait, no, that was the mistake I did. Just because you're not STEM doesn't mean that you're humanities. The rest of the people are business, finance. No, I know. I know. I understand that. And in the United States of America, I'm willing to bet that a sizable chunk of this is actually business and finance majors and not necessarily humanities and art. And that's part of the reason why it's so low here. And that is because that's where the money is. It doesn't mean that it's all art and literature. You also don't have to major in humanities. You just have to take those classes when you STEM major because they're good for you. Yeah, I don't necessarily know how well flushed out like the Chinese STEM education is, but I still suspect that they probably have every higher degree, whether you're in a college in America or anywhere in the world, requires you to take at least some level of humanities classes. Even if you're STEM in the United States of America, you still have to take some humanities classes. I suspect that it's probably still the same in China as well. And I don't know how much more well-rounded the Chinese STEM degrees look like, but it's the overall a good thing to have that. No, STEM in Germany requires no humanities. If China had no humanities, they wouldn't have so many fucking art museums, shatters, tripping. One interesting note is that many Americans are not bilingual, which in present day U.S. market can actually put you well below U.S. citizens in terms of marketability to capital owners. Outside of the U.S., high school is very robust. College is already specialized by them. Yeah, that's also the other part of this, at least from my own personal experience. Even in Turkey, when you start specializing by high school, you still have, like, I was a TM major, which means I took Turkish, which is like literature, and math, as opposed to M majors who specialize in Fen, science, and math. Math is still very important and something that you need to take. Like, we took up to Calc 2 in high school. By the time you get to college in Turkey, you already have that. You already have that background. So I suspect that like a lot of the high school education is also better flushed out in these other countries rather than the way it is in America. Actually, I don't even know fully how it is in the United States of America. But yeah, U.S. math in high school, like the Common Core high school math that you take is definitely significantly worse than the rest of the world. I had Calc 1 senior year for college credits in high school, no Calc 2. A lot of the big tech companies right now are losing a lot of talent to private equity / hedge funds. I know developers who are in their late 20s that are making $225K a year plus 50 to 75K source firm or hedge fund developer who got the fuck out. I make less now, but at least I'm not selling my soul. Yeah. Notice how, here, I'll just say it like this, okay? I have obviously personal experience with this, not from my own immediate experience in the workforce, but let's just say I know someone who's very close to me, who is highly educated and builds spaceships for a living, okay? And what I have seen in terms of workplace treatment, in terms of job prospects, in terms of what that specific sector looks like, you would be shocked, okay? I was certainly shocked when I saw how incredibly dire the situation is, where, and I talked about this yesterday as well, every sector in the United States of America, including like what was formerly known as the golden bracelet sectors, like engineering, you know, maybe lawyering, being a doctor. Engineering was supposed to be part of that process. Nowadays, even engineering is basically relegated to the passion that you have for building certain things, because it's certainly not about the money. If you're an engineer and you want to make money, you got to go into finance. The only fucking sector that you can make money in is finance, okay? It's business and finance. That's it. That's it. And that's precisely why so many people that have, no matter what their fucking background is, go into that sector. So if you understand the motivational capacity that wages have, your salary has, then you can understand how to fix this problem. Are you saying doctors don't make good money? No, I'm saying engineers don't make as much good money as they used to. Anyway, the point is, it all still comes back to wages. If you want to positively incentivize people into going to certain sectors that need extra hand, you have to ensure that wages are higher and that sector is still capable of recruiting the top level talent. But we have a negative incentivization structure in the United States of America where basically we make it so that the bottom is endless, and therefore you're constantly competing with the entire globe, with the labor force of the entire fucking globe, where your starting position is worse off in general too, despite the fact that you're in the wealthiest nation on the fucking planet. Okay? You're in the wealthiest nation on the planet, a nation that has seen a 14% increase in homelessness this past year. Okay? Think about that. 700,000 people are sleeping outside tonight. Insane. On top of that, you have to take you're saddled with student loan debts that force you into jobs that you don't even want to fucking take, despite your educational attainment. And people eat one another alive when they're talking about, or it was 18% increase. Sorry, it's not 14% increase. People are eating one another alive and yelling about how college is for the elites and it's gay and woke and that's the real problem and DEI is the real problem or whatever. A number of different unnecessary and idiotic fucking takes are flying around. Meanwhile, people like Elon Musk are robbing you fucking blind. And this story in and of itself is fantastic for me because I think it exposes how easily tricked many Americans are and how they utilize the racism button to gain favor and continue further division in American society as they continue their domination. They don't give a fuck about anything other than making more money, okay? They only care about profits. It doesn't matter what happens to you.
Musk, who himself is from South Africa, said that he once had this kind of visa, and he's arguing that Silicon Valley is facing a shortage of excellent engineering talent, as he put it. But the annual cap on those kinds of visas right now is at $65,000, with another $20,000 for those who get a master's or a doctorate in the U.S. Musk is being backed up by his partner in Trump's government efficiency initiative, Vivek Ramaswamy. He says it's a cultural issue that there aren't more competitive engineers in the U.S. Here's what he said online. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the job.
Like, this is so stupid. It's incredible. We're not venerating our nerds enough. Our culture doesn't venerate nerds. Yeah, that's the problem. Thank you, Vivek. I love that Vivek basically was like, yeah, I got no pussy when I was in high school, so now it's your fault. Also, it's not like Vivek is a fucking engineer. What does he produce? He hasn't done shit. He's a hedge fund guy. He is a pharma bro. He's a fucking Silicon Valley tech guy. Him, JD Vance, Elon Musk even. Elon Musk is at least like visibly autistic as fuck, so people assume that he's like some kind of fucking engineering savant when he's not. He has one fucking patent. What the fuck has he done? He has one patent. All he does is hire the appropriate people and then fucking, put them under horrific circumstances. Oh, not him projecting. These guys are all business majors LARPing like they're actually fucking cooking up new inventions. It's all aesthetics. There actually was one guy in my high school who qualified for the U.S. International Math Olympiad team, but now works in a quant firm. It's so messed up that his talents are being focused to trade the stock market due to that being what capitalism... Exactly. I'm sure that dude could apply himself better in a public research capacity instead of churning out extra profits for capital owners who hire him. Okay? But that's where the big bag is. So why the fuck would you not go there? The only thing that stops you from going there is the genuine passion that you have. This is what I was talking about with respect to fucking engineering. The only thing that keeps certain engineers continuously in the engineering side of things and not going to fucking finance where all the money is certainly not the fucking job prospects. It's certainly not the comfortable salary that you get. It is your own pure passion. It is autism. Okay? It is the autistic interest that you have in building certain things. That's it. That's it. And some people go, all right, fuck this. I need to make money. And then they go into finance anyway. Like there is so much talent in this world. There is so much talent in this world, from highly educated people all the way to people whose potential is robbed from them due to the unequal circumstances they were born into. Okay, where people could apply themselves to truly make revolutionary, groundbreaking, world-changing technology to improve people's lives in a dramatic capacity. And yet, all of that talent and all of that brain power is lost to the fucking finance sector, because that's the only thing that makes money. That's the only thing that people care about. And as all these other sectors offer you very little pay, as the cost of living increases in these major cities that you have to get these jobs at, that's it. We're just cooking ourselves. We're cooking society. Stop using the word autistic to describe any interest in something, please. Okay, I will not stop using the word autistic when talking about someone who is autistic. What the fuck are you talking about? Shut up. Anyway, let's continue.
Talk over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World, or Zach and Slater over Screech and Saved by the Bell, or Stefan over Steve Urkel and Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. But that argument is not going over well with Trump's MAGA base, certainly not online. Some of them saying, we did not ask them to engineer an immigration policy. Tech wants indentured servants, not high-skilled workers. You don't even know what MAGA immigration policy is. Now, Trump...
Wait, and Coulter said American workers can leave a company, imported H-1B workers can't. Tech wants indentured servants, not high-skilled workers. Yeah, it's not just tech, by the way. And Coulter, it certainly isn't just tech. Let me tell you, it's every sector. It's every sector. That's where undocumented migrants come in. You know, driving your Ubers, picking the crops. Who do you think is doing that? Building houses. Who is working in the kitchen? The problem is capitalism makes people more vicious and more self-interested, and causes people not to recognize that a lot of Americans, or a lot of people across the globe, have the exact same interests, the exact same class interests. So when those class dynamics are mystified consistently through the likes of identity politics and all these other different classifications that are applied to workers broadly, and the attitude developed within liberalism is this zero-sum game always. People go, why the fuck would you raise the wages for undocumented migrants? Fuck them. They should be deported. Not realizing that if there was at least some kind of legal safeguards for undocumented migrants, that they could be processed and become documented laborers in the American marketplace, in the American labor marketplace, where they could actually work alongside the documented U.S. labor force and unionize and demand higher wages and better workplace protections. It would genuinely improve all labor in this country. But as it stands, the way we operate, we have a constant depressive force on wages, an endless talent pool that refreshes through incredibly violent means such as deportation. Okay? Those guys are just the same as you. There is nothing different between an undocumented migrant and a documented U.S. laborer. There's no difference whatsoever. They're just trying to make a living in the exact same ways that you are trying to make a living. They're coming from dire circumstances in comparison to the average American worker. That much is true. But if there were universal workplace protections, they wouldn't be endlessly exploited in the same way. And therefore, they would not operate in a depressive capacity to the rest of the marketplace, the rest of the fucking wage laborers. The system has created an endless bounty of treats that are at an affordable price point for the average American consumer. So on that front, that level of consumption has this dulling effect on the, I guess, labor aristocracy in the United States of America. However, it has consistently not only depressed wages, where wages have not kept up with productivity, But also on top of that, it just ruins your life further and further, slowly but surely. All the big ticket items that you need, like a college education for upward social mobility, is now impossible to attain without taking on hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loans that will then trap you into jobs that you don't want to actually do, that you are overqualified for. But it doesn't matter because what else is out there? Someone has to pay those fucking student loan debts. So you take on these jobs in the service sector, even though you're supposed to be doing something different. And it ties you into that job. Not only are you saddled with death, but you're tied to that job because there's no other way for you to get health care.
Workers, you don't even know what MAGA immigration policy is. Now, Trump himself, who I should note restricted H-1B visas in his first term, has said on the campaign trail this time around that he did want to make it easier for educated foreigners to work in the U.S.
What I want to do and what I will do is you graduate from a college.
China spends 7 trillion yuan, about 1 trillion USD on education, more than double what they spend on defense, more than what the U.S. spends on defense. University is basically free even for the poorest villager. Yeah, we can't do that. That's too costly. And also, if education is free, who the fuck is going to go? If college is free, who is going to join the American military? If college is free, then why the fuck would you sign your soul to the Defense Department, to the Pentagon? Hello? College is free, then you no longer have student loan debts that you have to pay off. Why the fuck would you take on? Why? You would have too much leverage. You would have far too much leverage to say no to certain jobs until those jobs actually pay well enough. That's it. That's the entire principle behind the way that our system is designed. It's negative incentives all the way down. Here, can you believe it? This is a Chinese university, the Hebei Institute of Fine Arts in China, built and subsidized by the people. Anyway, I mean, this is just one fucking college. We need to do a broader, we can look into like Chinese humanities and arts funding in a little bit.
I think you should get automatically, as part of your diploma, a green card to be able to stay in this country. And that includes junior colleges too. Anybody graduates from a college, you go in there for 2 years or 4 years. If you graduate or you get a doctorate degree from a college, you should be able to stay in this country.
My political sources tonight are former New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, CNN political commentator and Republican strategist Shermichael Singleton, and also CNN economics and political commentator Catherine Rampell. And Catherine, you have covered this issue for a long time. Can you just lay out what we're looking at here in this divide between what Elon Musk says he thinks would be the best for the United States and why we are seeing something that we have not seen, frankly, almost at all lately, which is a lot of people in the MAGA universe outright disagreeing with him, arguing with him, and breaking with him online?
So Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy in this particular case, I think, are exactly right. America's ability to attract talent from around the world is basically our economic superpower. The fact that, in particular, we've been able to attract high-skilled immigrants quite reliably in this country over the past century or so is why we have this enduring leadership in science, tech, and business. So just as an example, of all Fortune 500 companies, about half of them were founded by immigrants or the children of immigrants. And of the Nobel laureates, American Nobel laureates who have received prizes for the hard sciences this century, about 40% of them are immigrants who came to this country. So again, this is our superpower, and I'm very glad that Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy recognize it. I very much hope that they are able to influence Donald Trump on this particular issue, but I'm doubtful about it because, just as you mentioned, in his first term, Trump was actually quite hostile to legal immigrants, in particular, by the way, high-skilled legal immigrants. He made it really hard for them to come here, not just those who wanted work authorization, international students who cross-subsidized American students, by the way. He basically harassed them and made it very difficult for them to keep their legal documents in order. That's because, as much as Trump has said, oh, he only objects to illegal immigration, he's very much in favor of legal immigration. His policies don't bear that out. And that's partly because Stephen Miller is the one who was the architect of Donald Trump's immigration policies last time around, and will probably do so again this time around, and is unlikely to adopt the sort of Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy view of things.
Yeah, Stephen Miller's getting a huge job in the West Wing. He's been around Trump for the 4 years he was out of office. And sure, Michael, as the Republican here, I wonder what your view on this is, because this is happening within the Republican Party. I mean, these are two top advisors to Trump, the MAGA world, who are kind of framing this as the true believers, who say, we asked for stricter immigration policies. That didn't mean coming with a carve out for high skilled workers that they say are taking American jobs here.
Yeah, look, I think with all due respect to Mr. Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, they should focus on saving federal dollars for the taxpayers and not immigration policy. I understand some of the points that Catherine made, and I agree to an extent, but I think the U.S. should focus more on domestic skill development. Studies also show that H-1B1 exacerbates employers hiring individuals from outside of the country when they could potentially hire minorities, for an example, which we know there's a shortage in the STEM fields. There are a significant number of Americans who I think would love opportunities if they had the proper training and skills to operate in those jobs fairly well. So why not start and focus there? I'm not of the support or mindset, Caitlin, that we should let in more than the 60,000+ that were already let into the country. Do we have some deficits? I certainly understand that point, again, to what Catherine was sort of alluding to. But I think by focusing on increasing domestic skill development, you can decrease the furtherance of those deficits by virtue of saying, you know what, we're going to spend more of our time, more of our dollars educating our own citizens to compete for these jobs versus saying, let's increase to 100,000 or maybe even more.
Right wing has arrived at DEI by accident. What if I were to tell you that all matter of white identity politics is already white DEI? What if I were to tell you that all the racism that you see is literally white DEI? Everybody loves DEI. Listen to a bunch of the Musk Loomer space. It's so wild. It's so embarrassing. Musk says accurately and repeatedly. Loomer said she would escalate her complaint to Trump, and Musk asked her who she thought she was. You're not the people. You're a person. Let's get that straight. And an insane person at that. That's it. As someone here on H-1B, this discourse has made me really concerned about my situation. There's no other legal pathway to immigration without an H-1B. No, I know. Also, H-1Bs are not bad. It is good. It's a good structure on principle. It's a good structure in theory. I don't even care. It doesn't even need to be H-1B visas. I don't take issue with any sort of migration in general. I want to fucking document all of the laborers across the board that are working in American commodity production, because I understand that that is the only way to improve wages and benefits for all American workers. The problem is they don't want to do that, and American capital owners only want to utilize H-1B visa workers in a way to exploit them further, in a way that they can exploit them more than they can exploit the documented U.S. labor force, because there are multiple pressures on top of that. Marvel with me and we get 4 p.m. bruv, says Elam. Yes, bruv. I'm down, bruv. Type shit. I'm down, lad. Elam, I don't know if you know this, but I'm gold 3, okay? Get us some fucking... Elam, go find us some supports, though. We need supports. Manchester.
Or for employers to bring in individuals from India, which is a predominant country where many of them come from. I don't agree with that at all. And I think folks in the MAGA world have every right to be angry with Vivek and Elon Musk. Yeah,
well, that's an interesting point, because I saw that argument being made, but also I saw Mark Cuban, Mr. Mayor, responding to that, saying, well, and I think we have what he had posted, quoting to Elon Musk and Vivek, saying, well, everyone, argue college is overrated. If you're arguing we need to have more homegrown engineers, don't we need more kids who are going to college? I mean, I think he's being a bit sarcastic there, but that is kind of the dual arguments that you...
I mean, that's it. That's it. You can't literally be like, college sucks and it's gay and woke and there should be no college. You shouldn't go to college. And then simultaneously be like, oh, what the fuck? Why are there so many more better educated immigrant labor out there? Yeah, no shit, dude. Of course. You have literally systematically destroyed American education for years to turn profit, to make the broader populace more servile, easier to dominate, more malleable. You've made college so goddamn expensive that when American laborers want to be more productive and get education, higher education, you've made it impossible for them to do so without being saddled with thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. And then you're just shocked. Argument doesn't make sense there. What do you mean? How does it not make sense? Education is consistently defunded and undermined in this country, driving a massive wedge between the quote unquote middle class, like working class and capital owners. If you're from a wealthy background, you can go to an elite private school. Okay. It's very costly, but at least you get the top-notch education. Okay. Then from there on, you can go to a better college. If you're already wealthy, your parents probably went to a good college. Therefore, you have the one true affirmative action that everybody fucking allows in this country, legacy admission. You're set up in a way where if you're wealthy, your next of kin will also have a massive, robust network. Okay? Poor people, for poor Americans, they do not get any of these benefits. They're cooked. And they are, the quality of education that they get, if you're a part of the underclass, gets worse and worse year over year. What about POCs that are in higher education but are not getting those jobs? This is an issue that affects all Americans. Wait, what? What? I'm confused as to why you think this is like somehow opposing an argument that I have presented. I genuinely don't know what you're saying, unless you mean POCs as a person of capital. Is that what you're saying?
You see sometimes from this political orbit.
Look, I see a couple of things going on here. First of all, I have to say I agree with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. I think they're pointing out the reality that we're living. You could say, and I hear Shermichael's point, I disagree with it though, because I think it misses the fact that we want to get to the place where we can maximize the use of our own talent in this country. Let's bring in the best and brightest from all around the world. Let's really make our economy stronger. Let's become even more tech dominant. That's the way, in fact, to elevate the whole country and to create more opportunity for Americans of all kinds in the tech field. So I don't know why on earth we wouldn't want to grab all the talent out there, especially because if we don't, our competitors will. I think it's also fascinating that we're seeing this kind of open conflict. I think it's going to be the first of many. And of course, that speaks to the question of Elon Musk's role. I think
POC equals people of color. Yeah, I know that. I'm making a joke. I don't understand what that chatter is saying undermines my point. I don't know why he was being contentious when he brought up people of color. I was making a joke when I said, unless you're talking about people of capital.
Really soon, we're going to see more divergence between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. It's natural, given each of them having the power they have. I think that's going to be a very, very important storyline in 2025, that these two people who appear to be allies but really have very different interests start to diverge issue by issue. We saw it also during the recent budget fight. I think we're going to see it on issues like artificial intelligence and climate, where Musk has been in a different place than.
About 1 million arts and literature graduates in China out of 4.7 million graduates last year, about 21% according to Statista, above around 10% for US according to some sources. So China has double the number of arts and literature graduates in China than the United States of America, percentage-wise. So it is mostly just fucking business and finance. Or I feel like STEM also features finance, because you got like quants and shit, like math majors.
That's going to have ramification for how successful Trump can be in general. And then finally, I mean, look, for the MAGA world to be turning on their own this quickly. This is also an interesting question. They almost look like Democrats here. You know, it's like, so I say this lovingly as a Democrat, like we have an ability to eat our own very quickly sometimes. Well, this is fascinating. Here are these heroes just a few minutes ago, and they say one thing that a lot of the MAGA world disagrees with, and suddenly they're being villainized. That's not good for that coalition.
Yeah, I think that's interesting in terms of what the West Wing will look like, too. I mean, Elon Musk is not coming in, Catherine, but in an official capacity, but he's in the room. He's always at Mar-a-Lago. Trump jokes about how he's always often there.
Yeah, Laura Loomer, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Laura Loomer actually did bring up a good point where there's a lot of like entry-level jobs that where Tesla and even SpaceX, I think, where Elon Musk relied on H-1B visa workers, rather than American laborers. And we know what the real reason as to why he did that. The real reason as to why he did that is because, once again, H-1B visa workers are more easy to dominate. Okay? That's it. They have additional pressure on top of the regular fucking pressures that the documented U.S. labor force has. They're more vulnerable. They have less leverage. They can be deported if they don't play ball, if they lose their jobs. It's all about finding the most vulnerable workers that you can dominate, because ultimately you want them to do the job of 2 workers, 3 workers, 4 workers. Okay? They're easier to exploit. Elon banned me today for talking about class. Very telling. He bans me, but not the races. What? Oh, okay. I think you're missing a point. I love you, Hassan, but I've listened to you too much for about 6 weeks, and I think you need to do a deeper dive into race. Yes, we understand that. I do. I think chat does too. Dude, in 2024, we're not doing that. Okay? No more hollow racial critiques. Okay? Racism is a divisive component of this conversation that basically gets these dumbass MAGA guys to be on board with whatever the fuck the white supremacist forces are advocating for. If you think 2025, sorry, if you think that I'm not familiar with how racial dynamics are factored into this equation, I don't know what to tell you. This is still, at the end of the day, a primarily class-based problem. Okay? You want to know why I know this is a class-based problem? Racism is just an additional component that makes the position of capital owners more marketable to the white working class. Okay? You want to know why I know this is a class problem? Because they used to make these arguments against other people that were not considered white. Okay? That are now obviously considered white. It's just depending on where these people are coming from, like the Irish, like the Italians, Polish people, Jewish people. Racism in this regard is simply a way to try and get broader subsects of the American labor force on board with arguments that actually harm them. This is literally the same situation for illegal Mexican immigrants on farms, right? Am I wrong? Basically, a workforce, you can work 4x the time for 25% of the pay for normal Americans, but because it's tech world and fancy sounding names, people don't associate them. Yes, you're absolutely correct, which is why I keep repeating that point over and over again. Wait till business owners, like small business owners that rely on undocumented labor, wait till those guys start feeling the pain of mass deportation. Anyway, following since 3 days ago, I think this person isn't aware that you talk about this constantly. I know. Racism in this regard is a way to drive a wedge between the working class, because the violence that is dished out upon black workers, brown workers alike, is dished out on a class basis. Unless you are talking about like individual acts of violence or the additional violence that comes from systemic racism, when we're talking about wage laborers, when we're talking about how wages work and why H-1B workers are seen as fantastic additions to the American workforce by these capital owners, it is because they have an extra component of vulnerability. And that is that they can get deported if they don't have their jobs. That means they are more readily available to work longer hours, for example. They can be brutalized and exploited further than the documented labor force can be, regardless of what their background is. Okay? That's it. It's that simple. Trying to fucking drive a wedge into this conversation by being like, well, it's actually white supremacy. You're not talking about white supremacy. When white supremacy is an important component in this conversation, only when you're talking about how this attitude is marketed or how the resentment is universalized by white working class racists who don't fucking understand that they are being fucked over. When I'm literally trying to explain to people who might be in the margins of having these sorts of attitudes that they have the same exact interest that every other worker has all around the world, all you're doing is unnecessarily trying to bring the conversation back. You're unnecessarily trying to bring the conversation back to identity politics with a very hollow, very shallow conceptual understanding of identity politics. You are either willingly or unwillingly playing the role of a wrecker in this regard.
He has dinner with him regularly. Between that and the tech moguls who have been parading down to Mar-a-Lago to also have dinner with him, I wonder what that looks like with this divide that is so clear between Stephen Miller and what he has been advocating for and what we know he did in the first term, and what this looks like with a new big advisor in Trump's ear like Elon Musk.
Trump seems to listen to the last person he heard from. So if that is Elon Musk, it might be Elon Musk. If it's Stephen Miller, and as you point out, Stephen Miller will have a very powerful job in the next administration, it's probably going to be him. Frankly, I don't think Trump pays all that much attention to the nitty-gritty policies that are taking effect under his watch, which is probably why he doesn't even realize that last time around, he did a lot more to reduce legal immigration than illegal immigration, because Stephen Miller.
So white people are attacking Indians for smelling bad? What? Yeah, whites are attacking Indians for smelling bad because of their class, not their race. You're so dumb. I don't see color. Lefters. Yeah, whites are attacking Indians for smelling bad because of their class. Are you okay? Are we having a conversation about the white supremacist attitudes that many race people demonstrate towards Indians? Or are we having a conversation about like what the capital owners' interests here are in terms of retaining H-1B visas as a structure and why that is so beneficial for your bosses? Cognizant is an Indian IT company. This article is widely overplaying this. So white people are attacking Indians for smelling. Also, this is a unimaginably racist fucking thing to say. I know that you're probably trying to say that like this is what people are saying, okay? But the way you structure the sentence makes it seem like you also feel this way, okay? But yes, racism as a white supremacist attitudes and racism as a divisive component in regular political discourse is used in this regard. That's it. You're not wrong. Yes, white people are like, oh, Indians come from a different culture. They can't be a part of Western society. They smell bad. Yeah, that is unimaginably racist. The practical application of that kind of racism is so that people differentiate themselves from others who have the exact same class interests as they do in order to divide the working class and dominate them with ease. So yes, unless you personally, as a fucking radlib, believe that people are just intrinsically tribalist and it's not learned behavior and they're ontologically evil due to their intrinsically tribalist nature, which by the way has no solution whatsoever to that problem. So I guess we just have to kill racist people, I guess. Like, I don't know how you want to approach the problem, how you would tackle this fucking problem. Have to understand and contend with, yes, a materialist analysis of the issue. What the fuck is this argument? You end up playing the role in the exact same way that fucking racists do, even though you're morally correct if you're anti-racist. Ultimately, you're serving the same exact purpose, which is the underlying assumption that like white people on the other side of the equation who also are being destroyed by class dynamics, by class politics in general, who are victim to class violence, actually the real enemies. I do not care about the fucking bourgeois. I do not care about the capital owners. I want the American working class to be fucking punished. That's your attitude. You're like, fuck the likes of Elon Musk. I want the regular American to be fucked over. 1 million 9/11s to the American working class. Talking out against racism equals radlib. I never said class is not important. Race is a very important factor too. No, you want this conversation to be dominated on the virtues of race and race alone. When I'm having a conversation about the class component, you want to bring it back to race. You want to simply talk about the individual racist acts that you see from dumbass racist people without having a broader conversation. This is the one time where I'm not directly talking about racism and tackling it head on. And you immediately go back, no, stop talking about class, only talk about race. While you are morally on the right side of this argument, if you are anti-racist, and it seems like you are, you're still serving the same purpose, diluting the conversation, trying to fucking laser in on one component, the component that is the most shallow component. It's just a marketing. And now that you were called out for this weird wrecker behavior, you go, talking out against racism equals radlib. I was simply talking out against racism. Yeah, because they're critiquing their race. No one cares about the H-1B visa holders from Europe. because a lot of the H-1B visa holders overwhelmingly still come from China and India. This doesn't justify the racism that they experience. Also, this is incorrect as well. UK had to import a lot of Romanian laborers and Polish laborers. That was a big component as to why they wanted to fucking leave the European Union. That's why Brexit happened. The overwhelming majority of the British working class were frustrated with the fact that there was a shit ton of Polish workers in the UK. So no, it literally, in that regard, wasn't because the Polish mind is servile and easy to dominate, and it's not up to standard with the unique high IQ British mentality. It was because they were like, what the fuck? They're taking the jobs. This man runs the identity politics like a Republican campaign manager. Yeah. It's so dumb because this is something that everyone in this community understands. Okay. Racism is not only inappropriate, it's fucking idiotic. It's wrong. Everybody understands this. All you're doing in this situation is basically going, racism is bad. Yeah, no shit, dude. Thanks for the fucking brilliant take. I really, you changed my worldview in its entirety. Please stop talking about class dynamics and go back to race instantly. Okay. And then you also turn around and say, oh, this is just class reductionism. You're just being a fucking annoying wrecker for no goddamn reason in a situation where the material reasons why people want H-1B visa workers in the eyes of the bosses is not because Indian workers are easier to dominate, because a lot of people are white supremacist and anti-Indian, okay? That's not the reason. It's because of currency exchange rates, and also because, and more importantly, you'll get fucking deported if you lose your job. So you are easy to exploit. That's it. That's why I talked about whiteness as an ever-expanding concept early on, and do so pretty much every single fucking day, because if the broadest majority of like H-1B visa workers were coming from fucking Poland, then yes, I promise you, as is historically what has happened in American history towards the antagonism that Americans in the in-group have demonstrated towards the out-group, they would be anti-Polish, just like they were in the UK, just like they were in the United States of America. It's not exact same, but my tech company hires software engineers out of India instead. We are fully remote. Salaries are 1/3 the cost of a U.S. employee. Yes, that's what I'm saying. If the majority of H-1B was from Poland, we would not have this problem. You are wrong. You are absolutely wrong. If the overwhelming majority of H-1B visa workers were Polish, Americans absolutely would be busting out old ass like anti-Polish sentiment in that they would accept the Polish. No, they wouldn't. And no, they haven't. They literally historically have not. So you're wrong. It took decades for Americans to adopt Polish people into the broader white in-group. What the fuck are you talking about? I gave you an example from recent history where that literally was a major problem for the UK. Yes, he doesn't fully understand the full extent of racism. He doesn't, but I love him. What? Yeah, I don't. It's because I'm a privileged white man, okay? Are we really doing this right now? Yeah, I don't, okay? Leave the fucking community if you truly take issue with any sort of class politics. Feels like the kind of derailer that's doing anything to get an out of context clip. I don't know. I just don't. It's like, it's a wonderful opportunity to cherish Republican infighting, but god damn it, do radlibs have radlibs will look at any gift that has been given to us in this community, where this is an opportunity for radicalization, for people to understand their class position. Okay, they will come in here and be like, no, you're fucking wrong. You simply don't understand how white supremacy works, and that white supremacist attitudes are intrinsic qualities that are unchangeable. Okay, you are the idiot reacting in the chat. Yeah, I know. It's true. It's not wrong. Shut the fuck up, radlibs.
Was running the show. So I think that whatever Trump says he wants to do, the actual people who are executing the policy at the end of the day will be making the decisions.
I should start by saying Elon Musk is right about the nature of the problem, that there is a problem with high-tech skills in the United States. Mm-hmm. His solution is to immigrate more of these people, and that has got him on the outs with a lot of people on the right in Trump's coalition who say Trump, he ran on this idea of cracking down on immigration.
There are two factions here: the populists who would hate Polish foreign workers too, and the white nationalists who openly admit they'd be fine with European immigrants filling these roles. Yeah, but fucking white nationalists in the UK also hated the Polish workers. That's the point. Because whiteness is a socio-political construct that can expand or shrink. Okay? That's the point. Polish people historically have found themselves in the non-white category not that long ago. Look at Nazi Germany. Class reduction being used to justify racism is a real problem in many parts of the world. This ain't one of those fucking instances. Exactly. It's also, I'm not even saying that like race doesn't fucking matter at the end of the day, okay? Race does play a big role in this. Racism is the marketing component that universalizes and makes the capital owners aligned with the fucking white working class that have these racist attitudes. It is historically a very effective way, especially in America, a white supremacist society with unexamined and resilient white supremacist aspects, has been the most significant way to rob everyone blind, okay? Don't make me bust out the Lee Atwater quote again, or the LBJ quote again. If you convince the lowest white man that he is still somehow higher than the highest black man, that you can rob him blind, hell, he'll open out his pockets for you.
And also building up American workers, not foreign workers.
Right, and I think that this issue, like so many that I expect we're going to see in the next few years, really illustrates the gap between these two blocks in the Trump coalition. I would put tech bros and Wall Streeters in one corner and the MAGA folks in the other corner, and there is going to be this juxtaposition. Now, I think that you can actually have it both ways. I mean, there is a way to crack down on illegal immigration, secure the border, those things a lot of people are for, and also make it easier for high-skilled immigrants to get into this country. Because the fact of the matter is, and I think folks on both sides would say, there are a lot of labor shortages that are actually the biggest problem to growth, productivity, and really the future of the country. And that is going to require more immigration. It's always been America's benefit, value add, particularly compared to Europe or a lot of other places in the country. It's why we have had historically higher growth.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious, Congressman. I mean, why, I can never figure out, why is it that when on the right, some of these anti-immigrant folks talk about this, they're not also talking about what it actually is going to take to bring American workers to these jobs, whether it's raising their skills.
I think the idea that like there is a labor shortage of skilled American workers in these fields is also incorrect, especially when like Elon Musk himself did this. Okay, what did he do? He bought Twitter. He was forced into buying Twitter from a Delaware court. Obviously, he didn't want to fucking buy Twitter at the price point that he was buying it at, but he was forced to buy Twitter. And what did he do? He immediately fired every fucking person that works at Twitter that wasn't an H-1B visa holder. Okay, that's what he did. Now, the product sucked as a direct consequence of that. It's barely working with a skeleton crew. But why did he do that? He did that because it's not that H-1B visa workers are significantly better at their fucking jobs than like American workers are. He did that because those guys have to keep their jobs in order not to be deported. It's that simple. There isn't a massive shortage of comp sci engineers in the United States of America. As a matter of fact, many of them are in here right now, probably delivering Uber Eats at this very moment because they got fucking laid off from the jobs that they were at. So that in and of itself is another aspect of this issue as well. That's part of the reason why so many people are frustrated with this, where they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? There is no shortage. Yeah, I'm delivering to your house 5 times a day. Hell yeah, baby. Listen, at least you're getting fucking fat tips. If you're delivering to my house, you're getting a lot higher tips than you are delivering to anybody else's house, all right? For the record, the H-1B visa worker, not quite correct regarding Elon on Twitter. Elon lowered their compensation so the people not on visas left. The people who couldn't leave skewed heavily H-1B as a result. It's the same argument. It's the same. H-1B visa workers are, they can work for lower pay and they will work worse conditions overall, because they are reliant on maintaining their jobs to stay in the country. I'm talking about the solution. The solution needs a race component because racism won't disappear in a class struggle. Does that make any sense? But I can leave. I'm just telling you my truth. Ugh, this is such a boring ass theoretical fucking conversation. Nobody says that like once you abolish class dynamics, racism will go away magically. Okay? It will, however, make it far easier to deal with than the current order of business. I was trying to say earlier because, but the reason there's an influx of H-1B workers from India is because the entire education system is set up to serve capitalism. Software engineering in India is far more cutthroat there than even here. Yeah.
Skill levels, et cetera, because I guess they don't want the government to be involved in that, but don't you think it has to be at this scale?
Why is
Look,
my
this,
king going
I think,
against
is one of the
theory?
biggest issues that we have to tackle in this Congress. Yes, we need to secure the border. We need to stop the massive influx of illegal immigration. But the fact is we have a population decline in this country, and we have a workforce shortage. We have a shortage of doctors, nurses, engineers, home health aides, ag workers, construction workers, hospitality workers. We need to not only have an
We don't. We don't. We have a shortage in one very important component. We have a shortage in wages. Okay? That's it. That's it. There's a pay shortage. There's a pay shortage. There's a benefit shortage. And that's it. How's the mouth post dentist? It's perfectly fine. The numbnesses went away as well. This is another way. This is another way of trying to do the nobody wants to work anymore attitude. Lolo had a funny tweet about this. I have a slice of, oh, what the hell? My grandma's here. I have a slice of lukewarm Domino's with Iranian beluga caviar. $1,000 per ounce. My Dolce silk robe flaps in the wind as I look out on my sprawling vista of my $35 million estate. I grab my phone. Pronouns suck, I type. I smirk. Briefly, I am alone. I am always alone. There's a messily poured drink on the fireplace. It's one of those automatic starters with the faux logs. This is from 2020. I always hated it, but never got around with the renovation. Another plant in the wind. I look at my reflection in the glass, my visage in the logs. My phone vibrates. Well. Selam. Bye-bye, Nikojum. Well, I suppose. I'm in trouble. A plea from the mother of my child. I feel a tinge. Is it regret? Maybe annoyance. I don't really know anymore. They'll get over it. It's just a joke. It's all a joke, isn't it? I stare at the logs in the fireplace. The fucking logs. As a nurse, we get paid decently, but we're chronically understaffed by design. Nurses have been charged with murder for med errors. Hospitals' work just wasn't worth it. Yeah. Isn't it strange that the gripes that nurses have are virtually universal? Nurses protest the exact same thing in the UK as they do in the United States of America. Isn't that shocking? It's almost always the fact that they are chronically understaffed by design. Okay? There are not enough nurses, which also diminishes the quality of healthcare that people receive. If you are a nurse and you are taking care of 7 patients, you are going to be able to offer them quality care. If you are a nurse and under normal circumstances, you could take care of 5 patients to 7 patients, but now you're taking care of 20 patients, you are not going to be able to, give them the quality care necessary. Literally, wherever there is a hospital around the fucking planet, nurses are facing the same exact problems. Nah, man, more like quality care is 1 to 4. Okay, I fucked up the numbers. I apologize. It's a 5 to 7. It's always the same. These are demands that nurses make that are totally reasonable and quite literally can be a matter of life and death.
immigration system that works, that has a legal process that people who want to come here and enrich our community, our culture, our economy can do so. But we need an education system that is ensuring that we are building the workforce that we need. It's not just about having a pipeline to college. We need a pipeline to the jobs that need to be filled, which means our K through 12 system needs to be reevaluated. We need vocational.
Yeah, when Lawler says this, by the way, as a Republican, he means we need to privatize education further, driving an even larger wedge between the broadest subsects of American society that don't have the fucking finances to be able to send their children to private school. Just so you understand, these people want to make K through 12 education the exact same way that college works in this country. Okay? And then they fucking complain they have the audacity to complain about college education being so fucking costly in this country and how you should just abandon it altogether. So what do you do in that situation? Are you going to abandon K through 12 education altogether as well?
Schools. We need to get kids started at an early age on the path to STEM so that we actually are creating engineers and the workforce of tomorrow, especially from a technological standpoint, from a biotech standpoint. We are the greatest force in the world, and our economy is the most powerful, and we have the most innovative and entrepreneurial people. But the fact is that we do have a shortage in the workforce, and we need to deal with this.
So, okay, what you just said is the thing that got Vivek Ramaswamy in some trouble, okay? So here's his post. He says, the reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit, a lazy, wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture, a culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. Sounds a little embittered, maybe. Is it American culture that's the problem?
Somebody got stuffed in a locker. I'm not going to say who. Look, I think there's a way to solve this and talk about this that doesn't denigrate all of American culture. I mean, I'm now understanding more and more how he got 100 votes in Iowa or whatever it was he got during the Iowa caucus. The reality is, and Elon, by the way, clarified or further explained his position later and was talking about saying, I want to bring in the top 0.1% of engineering talent from around the world. It's like bringing in a Jokic or a Wembyana to help your whole team if you want to make a comparison to the NBA. So I think we can bring in the absolute top talent from around the world and at the same time not insult the rest of the United States of America and our culture and the way we do things here, and also lift up the American students who have the talent and who have the interest and put them in the right educational opportunities. I think what he did today was to overtalk it. A lot of MAGA people are not happy. A lot of Republicans are not happy. And this is why Donald Trump's in the Oval Office and he's
saying
a
something
volunteer.
that a lot of people apparently believe, that it's about like the jocks being celebrated, the football stars being celebrated, and not the nerds.
It also challenges, actually raises the idea that many immigrant families have when they come to the United States.
This is when you arrive at like the final. This is when you arrive at the cutting edge of the inherent contradictions baked into capitalism. The interests of the working class versus the interests of capital owners. If you consistently try to liberal your way out of this problem, you're gonna fucking be like, oh, it's a cultural difference. That's why Indians have like a higher, a better culture surrounding nerdy shit. That's it. You've maxed out at that point, you know? And that cultural attitude is usually just a substitute for race anyway. If you build it, people will come. If you give better wage, if you offer better wages to people, they will go to those sectors. They will work in those sectors. I've often talked about the silly attitude demonstrated by many when people are talking about working in the oil refineries, right? There is no bone in the mind of a fucking Western Pennsylvanian that requires them to work in a fracking job. It's simply that those are the jobs that pay the most. Those are the jobs that have the best benefits. Backbreaking labor, it's heavily subsidized by the American government, and those are the jobs that people actually get the best income in. That is the reason why so many people in that area that work in that field feel as though this is the only opportunity they have. It's money. It all comes back to wages. So if you give better wages to people, if you give people the opportunity to live and survive on singular income, which seems like a dream now, then yeah, they will protect that sector. They will work in that sector. It's that simple.
That if they just get the right grades and they follow this meritocracy path, everything's going to work out and they'll be great. And the reality is that innovation, creativity, emotional intelligence are a huge part of success and innovation in the United States. American innovation is what sets us apart from the Communist Party of China. But this idea that immigrants are...
That's so funny. Yeah. Chinese innovation is really bad. That's what sets us apart, American innovation. Meanwhile, the brain drain is happening in the opposite direction nowadays. One must ask the question, why? It seems to me like that is definitely very frustrating and scary for a lot of American capital owners, American elites. They see that problem. They recognize it.
Often come with is also has a baked in racism to it. It's this idea that, well, we as immigrants are the right.
That is pretty funny that this person talked about baked in racism after being like, well, that's the beauty of American innovation, unlike the Chinese Communist Party. Yeah, those disgusting Chinese. Unlike those disgusting Chinese, we don't do racism around these parts. Did you know you're trending on Twitter for being called a misogynist? I thought nothing bad about your take on Queen Blake, but apparently people did. I'm so confused. Sorry for changing the subject. Yeah. Here's what I'm not going to do. Okay? Here's what I'm not going to do today. Talk about Radlib accounts. Oh my Lord. Yeah, I don't care, man. Yeah, I'm a misogynist and also a racist and a class reductionist. All the bad things, okay? What are you, fucking out of your mind? You think I'm gonna entertain Twitter call-out posts? Like, get the fuck out of here from like K-pop Twitter stan accounts. Are you out of your goddamn mind?
Kind, we're educated. We're not like those other minorities in America, and that distinction is made very.
Also, I don't even get trended anymore. Nobody gets fucking trending anymore. Trending tabs are no longer what? No, don't come over here. Drink your water and then go back to bed. Don't forget transphobe too, Avi. Yeah, it's true. I am also transphobic as well.
Very clear within minority communities. So, for example, you have, most people would not know that the richest and most educated immigrant population is Nigerian Americans. People would think it's Indian Americans, yet Nigeria was put on the Muslim ban list, right? There is this idea of who the model minority is, breeds that kind of challenge that we have with Korean grocers in black neighborhoods.
I think you're getting at something else important here, which is that we need all different kinds of learning and we need all different kinds of cultures. I mean, you made a great point about vocational schools. It's not just about math or the jocks, which is social skills, frankly, which matter. Actually, it's interesting that most CEOs come out of state schools and aren't necessarily the straight A students. You need to change education in this country. You need to value different kinds of skills. I actually think the idea of a meritocracy built just.
But don't dare call him homophobic. No, call me homophobic. I'm a foe. I'm a foe to the LGBTQ community. Everybody knows that.
On who gets the best SAT scores, and I'm the child of immigrants, don't get me wrong. I grew up in rural Indiana, though I was also a cheerleader. You can do both, so I think that you do need a system to be revamped in a way that we haven't done since the post-World War II period in this country.
Okay, I have to get you in on this because I think Rana's talking about something very important, which is there's a movement to sort of say, let's give everybody points for their grades and their SAT scores and their IQs, and then let's put them in college based on that. And if you did that, you would not actually get to the most successful people, the people who have the best potential. So how does that seems to honestly undermine this idea of a pure meritocracy, which is what Vivek Ramaswamy is talking about here.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a paradox here because the point about IQ and SATs and entrance exams is not necessarily that they are that they measure the inherent worth or the full 3D capacity of a human being, because as you say, there's all these other important skills in life, and we all know this, right? It's that they are objective. Right. And what we saw, for instance, they're more objective than the alternatives, right? There's no such thing as perfect objectivity on these tests, right? But when you look at what happened at Harvard with affirmative action, they were judging on all these soft skills as well, and their conclusion was that Asian American applicants had worse personalities, right? So the test is never going to do that. The test, it's never going to tell you unfairly that you got this math problem wrong, because if you got it wrong, you got it wrong. And there's something very attractive about that, especially to people from immigrant communities coming to a new country saying, they may not like my vibe, they may not like my culture, but they can't argue with my skill.
Yeah. We have new information this morning.
Oh. They're still Amber Heard fans? Yes. They're very loud, like 100%. And they spend most of their time yelling at me rather than like Johnny Depp supporters, which is funny because I am not a Johnny Depp supporter. I think it's the same principle behind like you yell at people that you perceive on your side because you can get more motion that way. It still ultimately comes from it still ultimately comes from a place of powerlessness in general. Tackling misogyny in society is virtually impossible. It's patriarchal. It's deeply embedded. So you're not gonna get any play yelling at fucking like Asmongold or some shit. So you're gonna yell at who? You're gonna yell at someone who tries to the best of his ability, develop a relatively safe environment, thinking that you can change that environment. So then it makes you feel like you've actually improved something. And in a lot of instances, it also comes from like a misunderstanding.
About President-elect Donald Trump's plans on immigration. The incoming border czar, Tom Homan, says the administration intends to revive practices labeled cruel by critics, including separating families. Scott McFarlane is covering the Trump transition and joins us now. Scott, good morning.
Dana, good morning. Homan told the Washington Post immigration authorities will once again put families with children in detention centers when Donald Trump returns to office. That's a policy that was halted by the Biden administration in 2021, and that they begin building new holding facilities for immigrant families to kickstart that controversial process. Homan also says the feds will try to track down nearly 300,000 immigrant children who he characterizes as missing, and that they'd hire private contractors to help locate the children. Immigration experts tell CBS News those numbers misrepresent government data, but Homan acknowledges in the interview.
Yeah, that just means that means that they are with 300,000 children that have been processed through the American immigration facilities that have been given to an immediate family member, for the record. When they're talking about 300,000 missing children, those children are not missing. They are with immediate family members that went through a background check process. No, people say or trafficking. No, the broad majority of these kids are not trafficked. You're out of your mind. It's like when people, what was it? When people used to say that like during the peak of the QAnon like COVID era, people would say that like what is there like 800,000 kidnappings a year or something? Like 800,000 children are kidnapped in the United States of America. And it was a misunderstanding of the data in and of itself, where one, they greatly overemphasized the number. It wasn't correct. And I think that the actual number of like children that are kidnapped with like a white van or some shit from a complete random stranger was like in the low tens. Now, of course, that is still horrifying, but it's not 600 or 800,000 children being kidnapped. Most of the kidnappings that they think are kidnappings are actually family court matters, an immediate family member with a custody battle, a child that goes missing for a day and then is found. That's literally what it is. Most of them are found within the 24-hour time frame, but people just like look at that number without people just simply look at that number without any further examination. Yeah. Donald Trump's incoming border czar, Tom Homan, has said that the U.S. government can't find more than 300,000 migrant children and that many have been lured into forced labor and sex trafficking. President-elect Donald Trump and his political allies, including Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, have repeatedly made similar claims. Trump's team's claims are that there are 300,000 children that have been, forced into sex trafficking and slavery. Very QAnon adjacent. Okay. According to immigration experts and attorneys, the claim largely stems from an August report from the DHS's Inspector General's office, which found that 32,000 unaccompanied minors failed to show up for court dates at immigration courts from 2019 to 2023. The report noted that 291,000 migrant children received no court notices at all. It also called on the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement to take immediate action to ensure the safety of unaccompanied migrant children in the U.S. Migrant children who do not appear for court are considered higher risk for trafficking, exploitation, or forced labor, the Inspector General's office reported. But Aaron Reichlin Melnick, policy director at the American Immigration Council, a migrant advocacy group, told the BBC the figures are indicative of bureaucratic paperwork issue rather than anything nefarious. When you hear the phrase missing, you think that there's a child that someone is trying to find and can't. That's not the case here. The government has not made any effort to find these children. Many of the children, experts say, may well be at the addresses that are on file with the government, but we're simply unable to make their court dates. That doesn't mean something bad happened to them. It means you missed a court hearing. There are valid concerns about exploitation, of course, but the overwhelming majority of these kids are delivered to an immediate family member with a proper background check that is simply not going to a court, is simply not attending court. We cannot, however, suggest that all 320,000 of those children are being labor trafficked. Eric Rourke, an immigration researcher with Numbers USA, which calls for tighter border control, said that the children are difficult to track because some combination of apathy, incompetence, and bureaucratic inefficiency. Many, hopefully even most, are safe with caring sponsors, he added, but the Biden administration can't actually say that one way or another and apparently doesn't care enough to find out. Unaccompanied minors detained at the U.S.-Mexico border go through a complicated process that begins with detention and processing by Customs and Border Patrol. Okay? If the child is from a foreign country that is not Mexico or Canada, they're placed into removal proceedings and transferred to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. HHS, through its Office of Refugee Resettlement Office, cares for the children in a network of state licensed providers. The office also seeks to reunify children with family members in the U.S. or with individual and organizational sponsors, who in turn are obligated to ensure they arrive at immigration court dates. Okay? What can the Trump administration do? I don't even want to know what they can do. I mean, they basically want to, basically want to do everything they can. They basically want to do everything in their power to deport these kids. Okay? And perhaps even better, deport the immediate family members that they were released to. Several immigration attorneys contacted by the BBC suggested the administration is likely becoming a sponsor for undocumented children much more difficult, even if the sponsor is a member of their family. In practice, this would mean that more undocumented children are kept in detention. They could do what the Obama admin did, detain them. The controversial Remain in Mexico program could also be applied to children, forcing them to wait across the border for the outcome of their immigration proceedings. I'm not sure even they know what they're going to do with the kids. But there's a border problem they're trying to figure out first, and that's the first concern before they're going to be harsh on both the children and adults. I think that they're going to be harsh on both children and adults. That much is clear. They have said that that's precisely what they're going to do. But yeah, the 300,000 number is the number of children that have come over the border with no immediate family members that have been detained by Customs and Border Patrol between the years 2019 to 2023 and have been released to a sponsor, either a state-appointed program that takes care of undocumented migrant children, or an immediate family member. In many of these instances, it's an immediate family member living in the United States of America. If you recall, one of the most cruel things that the Trump administration did, one of the craziest things that they did, was they would literally use the children that were apprehended at the border as bait. Okay? They would literally use the children apprehended at the border as bait. They would put them in the detention facilities, and then they would contact immediate family members. And then they would try to, and in some instances, successfully apprehend the immediate family members if they were not documented. They used the immediate family members of the detained children that were detained at the border to deport other people that were also currently inside of the United States of America. It's insane. Anyway, so yeah, fantastic stuff overall. We are going to become increasingly more demonic.
Some children of undocumented immigrants were born here and are therefore U.S. citizens. Those children cannot be deported, but their parents who are undocumented can be. Homan says it would be the parents' choice whether to let their families be split up.
Like, think about that. You're an undocumented migrant living in the United States of America. You have immediate family members that were born on U.S. soil and therefore are American citizens. All they've known is America. They're American citizens. They go to American school. In many instances, they only speak English. And this process, okay, is like the reverse chain migration. This process is like chain detention, where what Homan wants to do, what the Trump administration wants to do, is go to these children and say, hey, you either have to live here without your parents or you have to leave the country with your parents, despite being an American citizen, not having any citizenship in any other country, despite the fact that you have no understanding of the culture or the language of the country that we're going to deport you to. You have no connection to that country. It is unimaginably traumatic. It is just purely evil shit.
Controversy surrounding family separations just exploded during Trump's first term. His allies have argued it's a deterrent.
It's also vast. The cruelty is so vast. You have to understand how vast it is. 1 in 15 families in this country, 1 in 15 households in this country is of mixed status. Okay? That means in one house out of every 15 house in the United States of America, there is at least one parent that is undocumented. 1 in 15. Think about that. That is tens of millions of people. In order to in order to do this kind of mass deportation, you have to be knocking down everyone's doors, going into every fucking neighborhood, and forcibly ripping people that work in every sector in this country and putting them in detention facilities and maybe even deporting their children as well.
It's to illegal immigration, Dana.
Yeah, people are enraged hearing that that may be back. What about some other controversial immigration policies from Trump's first term? Any others that we might possibly see?
Yes, in this interview, Holman says Trump wants to reinstitute a Remain in Mexico program, which requires people who seek asylum to escape danger to wait outside of U.S. territory while their asylum claims are considered in U.S. courts, and that can take some time. Holman said they're considering a plan for so-called worksite enforcement also, which critics call worksite raids, in which agents descend on a business to track down the employees there who'd face deportation. All of this is going to cost money, which Trump will need to get approved through a very narrowly and bitterly divided Congress.
By the way, the numbers are even higher on this, but this is a paper from 1999 where it says nearly 1 in 10 U.S. families with children is a mixed status family. But that's from 1999. I think the updated number is 1 in 15.
Which Michelle takes office 1 week from today.
An expensive proposition, Scott. Thank you.
$315 billion. That's one staggering cost estimate for Donald Trump's signature campaign promise.
The largest domestic deportation operation in American history.
More conservative estimates are still enormous. One group puts it at $162 billion. That's more than the government spent on most federal agencies in fiscal year 2024. We'll explain why an operation of this scale could require hundreds of billions of dollars over the course of a decade.
Is it your plan to deport everyone who is here illegally over the next 4 years?
Well, I think you have to do it, and it's a very tough thing to do.
That means roughly 13 million immigrants who entered the country illegally are at risk of deportation, about 4% of the U.S. population. To put that into perspective, the entire U.S. prison and jail population in 2022 was around 1.9 million people.
Scale is difficult for the government to carry out.
Aaron Reichlin-Melnick is a senior fellow at the American Immigration Council, a liberal immigration group.
Trump would have to do more than quadruple current ICE removals of people arrested in the interior just to hit the levels that we've seen previously under Obama.
I think that you take a sequential approach to it. You start with what's achievable. Let's start with 1 million.
The details of the plan are still being worked out, but let's say Trump does decide to deport 1 million people a year. That could still cost about $88 billion annually and take 11 years, according to one estimate. And that's assuming 20% of people would leave on their own.
Yes, it's expensive, but the trade-offs, I think, are well worth it.
Ron Vitello led the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency known as ICE for a year in Trump's first term.
Right now, the government is underfunded for its ability to detain people. To be able to accomplish this and the border mission simultaneously will require a reallocation, if not an infusion for resources.
Other immigration experts say,
yeah, it's unimaginably costly as well. I mean, I usually don't talk about how costly this is, both to the economy and also just like how costly it is to even fulfill this initiative, because I think it's insanely cruel first and foremost. But it's crazy to me that like we always have money. We always have money for this type of shit. We just simply never have money to house homeless people. We never have money to make education free. You can't have, we can't fix the potholes. We can't improve infrastructure. We can't give you, better ISP service. We will never let you have public transit. Why? Because all the money has to go to our incredibly cruel, militant border policy.
The actual cost of Trump's mass deportation plan will be much lower than the American Immigration Council's estimate of $315 billion.
A more robust enforcement like the administration is contemplating may create significant economies of scale.
Stephen Camarata is the director of research at the Center for Immigration Studies, a group favoring immigration restrictions that helped staff Trump's first term.
Once you start doing it and you get an infrastructure in place, then it might be a lot cheaper.
Deportation starts with arrest.
There'll be targeted arrest. We'll know who we're going to arrest, where we're most likely to find them based on numerous investigative processes.
We're starting with the criminals, and we got to do it. And then we're starting with others.
Trump says dreamers, or people who entered the U.S. illegally as children, might be an exception. To make arrests, ICE officers would either identify someone who's already in a jail or prison, or go to a person's home.
Police, come to the door. The majority of undocumented immigrants are not in law enforcement custody. Most of them have never committed any offenses.
Arresting people out in the community, known as at-large arrests, isn't a common tactic for ICE.
Trump greatly improved those numbers, for the record. That was one major difference between Donald Trump's immigration policy versus even Barack Obama's immigration policy. Barack Obama was the king of detentions or the king of deportations because he was doing border apprehensions. Okay. Donald Trump continued the border apprehensions, but more importantly than that, he went in and did dragnet. He utilized ICE like a Gestapo force where he would just do at-large arrests, greatly releasing the shackles, the legal hurdles that kept ICE somewhat restrained. Seemingly, it's going to be worse this time around.
Hello says it's more logistically complicated and more expensive, but it's at the center of the Trump administration's plan.
I'm not concerned that they won't be able to find them. It's just a matter of time, given the circumstances, given the availability of information, and given the resources in play.
At-large arrests often require multiple federal agents and take several days because ICE officers don't generally have warrants.
Immigration violations are not criminal, which means that a judicial warrant to arrest them would not have probable cause. They might have to wait hours for the person to leave their house. They might have to stake out a work site.
To carry out arrests at this scale, the American Immigration Council estimates ICE would need to hire over 30,000 new law enforcement agents and staff, making it the largest law enforcement agency in the federal government. Vitello says this number is overstated, and that state and local law enforcement could be directed via task forces to help with at-large arrests, something they...
What are you saying? If 4% of your country... What? Literally the only argument for mass migration is GDP growth. Y'all have been brainwashed by the elite into thinking that unlimited population growth is necessary. It's still cheaper than one payment to Israel amount. If 4% of your country are invaders, you have a fucking issue. You think that undocumented immigrants are invaders? Dude, I really despise right-wing fucking morons so much. Like, listen, you big dumb baby. You wouldn't have a single goddamn vegetable if it wasn't for the supposed migrant invasion, okay? Shut the fuck up. If it wasn't so unimaginably cruel and violent, I would be sitting here excited at the prospect for you to recognize what kind of economic collapse that you would experience when the price of a fucking tomato is $75. Speaking about invaders. I know that the chatter probably doesn't eat his vegetables. Okay, he eats chicken nuggets. Okay, what do you think is working at the poultry facilities? I feel like the left needs to refrain from using the word Nazi so flippantly. It lessens the meaning and impact of the word. So do you support the migrant slavery in Dubai? Do you think that it's the same process? Do you think that I'm not an advocate for processing all of the undocumented migrants? Don't try to fucking pull that shit on me. No, I understand the difference between an undocumented migrant and any other member of the working class that has the proper paperwork is that they are devoid of the proper paperwork. This is an unnecessary legal hurdle placed upon them so they can be continuously exploited. That exploitation also has a downward impact on overall wages for the rest of the working class. The solution to that is not to literally engage in Hitlerian-style concentration camps, detention facilities, dragnets, having hundreds of fucking undocumented laborers in court at the same time in order to expediently process them through the criminal justice system and place them in concentration camps with shitty fucking conditions as you try to actively deport them until you recognize that that is too costly of an endeavor and it's much easier to just like kill them if you don't fucking enslave them in these detention facilities. That is Hitlerian. That is exactly what Adolf Hitler did do, as a matter of fact. That is what he did. I am not in favor of involuntary servitude. slavery of any sort. If your economy relies on migrant slave labor, I think there might be some serious issues. Yeah, no shit. Welcome to 90% of my commentary. What the fuck? Yeah, the problem is you think that the 4% are invaders. You think, look at this. Are you telling me that 4% of the population are illegals? If 4% of your country are invaders, you have a fucking issue. You have an issue. You think these guys are invaders. There is no difference in the way they see the world and what they want out of the world than you. Yes, I do think that this endless profit seeking and endless cruelty and endless exploitation that the American economy relies on is unsustainable and also horrifyingly unjust. This is how it works. We destroy these countries. We also supercharge ecological disaster through man-made climate change, making agricultural work impossible in these countries. So then, of course, people go, all right, well, I have no other options. I need to survive. I'm going to go to America. They trek thousands of miles, oftentimes on foot, through treacherous conditions to come here so they can work for pennies on the dollar. This process is incredibly beneficial for capital owners, for the bosses. It's so funny hearing you talk about this stuff, but never mention factory farming. What? Maybe Americans being subjected to having to work in the disgusting conditions in our concentration camps we use for chicken nuggies will be a good thing. At any point in history, if hundreds of thousands of people entered your country without permission, that would have been considered an invasion. No, brother. First and foremost, the idea that these guys are not entering the country with permission is silly. Okay? The permission structure quite literally is paperwork. Someone signing off on it. That's it. In order for this to be considered an invasion, you would have to think that every Guatemalan, Venezuelan, Mexican, every Honduran, every El Salvadoran is actually a monolithic force that is in the United States of America, not due to self-interest and the same exact fucking things that you need, okay? A roof over your head, food on your table, a better future for your children. But instead, they're here for some fuck shit. They're here to ruin the country. What an insane fucking attitude to have. Over 20 million people, by your estimations, that come from virtually every part of this world, every part of this globe. Yeah, they're all one note. They're all one-minded. They're all here to do invasion. They're all to do fucking fifth column style infiltration of the United States of America. What a fucking incredible invasion. White supremacists are so funny. They think white genocide is happening because people are voluntarily engaging in miscegenation. That's white genocide, not the genocide that actual forces subject others to, other nations to, other ethnicities to. Okay? It's only genocide when people are voluntarily having sex with like a Latino guy instead of you. Then it's white genocide. It's an invasion, not when you have boots on the ground military warfare, but it's an invasion when people that were invaded or have had their fucking lives ruined due to American empire, due to Western imperialism, due to the global banking structure and debt traps that we have implemented in all of these fucking countries, due to the ecological disasters that they're facing and the lack of opportunity that they have, due to the fucking political instability that they face that we cause in their countries, then they escape those treacherous conditions to come and work here for pennies on the dollar, and that's an invasion. Oh, so now I'm a fucking white supremacist. Yes, you are. You are. If you consider undocumented immigrants to be invading this country, I'm sorry, you are a fucking white supremacist. Whether you recognize that or not doesn't change that reality. Okay? Yeah, you are an evil psychopath if you think that undocumented migrants are invading this country. That is 100% true. Okay? At most, you are deluded and stupid. Okay? In the most charitable interpretation, you are a stupid person who has been deluded into believing that these people, okay, that come from all different walks of life, all different political ideologies, that are coming into the United States of America for one purpose, which is to have a better life for themselves, are actually invading as a monolithic parasitic force. Okay? If you say that, then yeah, you're either a fucking dumbass who is repeating Fox News because that's what your grandpappy saw, that's what your pappy saw, and you're just basically repeating the same fucking racist, stupid sentiment, or you're just straight up a card-carrying fucking neo-Nazi. It's one or the other. Are you smart enough to be well-read enough into the fucking nerdy esoteric neo-Nazi bullshit and therefore a neo-Nazi? Or are you a dumbass who is just repeating whatever the fuck you heard from other people and are fearful and reacting in a fearful way? Okay? I've never watched Fox News in my life and don't consume. I don't care what your fucking personal background is. Your output is the same. This should cause you to really reconsider why you examine the situation with the lens that you're examining it. Instead of fucking reacting to me, try to reinterpret the subject matter. Try to look back and think, why do I think that, once again, 20 million people from all different walks of life, all different political ideologies that are coming from all around the fucking global South, why do I think that they are a monolithic force invading the country? You will find your answer there. Okay? That's it. I don't give a fuck if you've never watched Fox News. Why are you repeating Jared Taylor sentiments? That's what you should be asking yourself. If you've never watched Fox News, why the fuck do you sound like Tucker Carlson? Okay? It has nothing to do with their skin color. They could be blonde hair, blue eye Scandinavians. I still call them invaders. Sure, chatter. I'm sure you would. And it doesn't even fucking matter. You'd still be a xenophobic piece of shit if the dynamic was so different that, like, we were actually dominating Scandinavian nations the same way that we've dominated the global South, and they were coming in here in droves. You would have the same fucking attitude towards them. You'd still be a xenophobic asshole, okay? It doesn't matter. You still be a fascist in that regard. It doesn't have to be just like the fact that they're brown, okay? Once again, really reconsider why you sound exactly like fucking Tucker Carlson.
Already do.
Having that referral system, having state and locals help ICE officers do their job. Better to have it than not, but not definitive in whether they do the work or not.
Then there's detention, the most expensive part of the whole process. It costs around $200 a day to hold someone in ICE custody. Congress has provided enough funding for at least 41,500 detention beds in fiscal year 2025. But that's not nearly enough to detain 1 million people a year. According to the American Immigration Council, ICE would need to construct 216 soft-sided facilities every year for 11 years. Soft-sided facilities are temporary tent-like structures that have typically been used near the border. Anyone not physically detained would be placed on electronic surveillance, which costs approximately $4 per person per day. Private contractors involved in every stage of the detention process could drive up prices even more.
Contractors drive people in between ICE detention centers or drive the vans after somebody's arrested.
Detaining children would also make this process more expensive.
I don't want to be breaking up families, so the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together and you have to send them all back.
Family detention is the most expensive kind of detention because the U.S. government is required to give people.
I don't really care about the economy that much. I just don't want to live in a country that looks like India. Yeah, I mean, this is like the peak racism take, okay? This is just like, this is a peak racist take. I mean, he's a fucking neo-Nazi.
Minimum standards, and those children need to have child welfare professionals on site. They need to have pediatricians on site. There needs to be a provision for them to get schooling if they are going to be held for months or potentially years at a time.
Vitello says one way the government could reduce costs is by repurposing existing detention centers like Guantanamo Bay.
A third country like a Panama, potentially Mexico, could agree to hold third country nationals so that their due process could be adjudicated, thereby lowering the cost.
Bro, that's not racism. He just doesn't want our country to be invaded. Exactly, right? Right, chatter? That other chatter who was saying, like, what do you mean? It doesn't matter.
And kind of sending a message down the pipeline that people are not going to be released into the United States to await those adjudications. That alone will reduce the number of individuals trying to cross the border illegally.
Camerata says there are over 1 million immigrants who could be detained at a much lower cost.
There are people with a final order of removal that we just never made leave. Those individuals shouldn't have to be held long. We can get them out very quickly.
After detention comes legal processing, which immigration law experts say is the biggest bottleneck in the mass deportation process. An additional 10.6 million cases would require nearly 2,000 more immigration judges and over 1,100 more courtrooms.
I'm a mover, and one thing I can't stop thinking about is what happens to everyone who gets deported homes and possesses all the rights. What do you mean? It's exactly the same as Nazi Germany. It's up for grabs. It's free real estate. It's free cheap goods that you can just like buy from a secondary market in the exact same way that Zone of Interest addressed this. Yeah, you just do estate sales. It's something that already happens in the West Bank quite frequently, as a matter of fact. It's something that Israel does on a regular basis in both Gaza and also in the West Bank, and they did a little bit in Lebanon as well.
There is not only a cost in the immigration court side, but there's also a cost in the ICE side in getting these new prosecutors online. You need support staff for the judges, judicial law clerks, secretaries.
Staffing on both sides leads each case to cost over $2,500. To set up new courtrooms quickly, the government would likely construct tent courts, like those built in 2019 to implement the migrant protection protocols. This was when immigrants living in the U.S. illegally were returned to Mexico to wait for the duration of their court proceedings. They went to tent courts near the border to virtually appear in front of judges.
You could do those hearings much faster, logistically get more judges and more hearings heard in a day.
Yeah, we can't have judges to process claims for asylum seekers, but we can have judges to expediently deport. This is why I'm saying it's going to be El Salvadoran court style, you know, judge with a balaclava sitting in a fucking crowded court proceeding and doing dragnet allocations, just like, 200 at a time, boom, boom, boom. Fuck it, put an AI there, actually. Yeah, we'll have AI judges.
As with finding new efficiencies in the detention space, that is another thing that has its limits.
Tent-style courtrooms in Laredo, Texas cost...
It's so funny to me when, like, people get mad at Israel on the Republican side, because there's plenty of people who, like, think what Israel's doing is, like, fucked up and also very costly. But then they, like, love this shit. So I guess it's just you don't want Jews doing it? I don't understand. Like, what is it? Like, I'm universally against this sort of fascist idea, okay? I don't care who's doing it. I don't care if it's America doing it. I don't care if it's Israel doing it. I'm against it, okay? You can't be on the one hand, that one chatter, remember, that one chatter who's not a Nazi, was very upset at how much money we're giving to Israel because Israel does this sort of shit, but then totally fine when we're doing it in the United States of America, calling them invaders. Well, what the fuck do you think Israel considers Palestinians? They call them invaders too.
Cost about $16 million to build and $143 million annually to operate. Once a person receives a final removal order, they have to either report for deportation at a later date or wait in detention until then.
At that point, the U.S. government has to actually arrange the removal. That would involve putting them on a bus and sending them to Mexico, but if they're from any other country other than Canada, that means putting them on a plane and flying them to their ultimate destination.
An operation of this scale could
I'll admit I've been getting brainwashed by right-wing groups, which is why I'm here to open my mind, but I would agree with deporting illegally entered criminals. Now, I do not agree with importing paperless people that do not commit crimes that cost that country. I also hate the idea of breaking up families, and it's disgusting. Please do call me a dumbass if my vision is flawed, but do tell why I'm flawed so I can become better. Yeah, the overwhelming majority of undocumented migrants are actually not doing any crimes other than crossing the border. That's it. Like, damn near the entirety. Undocumented immigrants are actually responsible for significantly less crime per capita than natural-born U.S. citizens are. Donald Trump has to lie about this over and over again. That's where racism comes in, where Donald Trump will say, undocumented migrants kill hundreds of thousands of Americans every year. Now, if I'm going to interpret what he's saying there in the most charitable fashion, okay, I will assume that he means fentanyl deaths, okay? Because if he doesn't mean fentanyl deaths, then he's out of his fucking mind. The real number of homicide and manslaughter committed by undocumented migrants on U.S. soil in the fiscal year of 2024 is like, what, 29? It's not 100,000. 29. It's not 29,000. It's just 29. Okay. So maybe he means fentanyl, right? Maybe he means like, oh, these guys are trafficking fentanyl. And that's leading to, thousands of fentanyl deaths in the nation. Well, therein lies another problem. The overwhelming majority, if not the damn near entirety of fentanyl that are trafficked over the American border from our southern border and regular ports of entry, actually 90% of them are apprehended at regular ports of entry, okay? They're coming in through the ports. Chemical compounds necessary to develop fentanyl are coming in through the fucking ports, oftentimes through China. The other direct introduction of fentanyl into the American marketplace is coming through regular ports of entry in cars that are not driven by undocumented migrants, not trafficked in through the knapsack of an otherwise law-abiding abuela coming in from Guatemala. It's actually coming with Americans who are driving their own cars and getting them chopped up in Mexico to deliver it into the United States of America. 90% of the fentanyl trafficked over the U.S. border is coming in through regular ports of entry. 90% of those who are arrested for trafficking fentanyl into the country are actually American citizens. Okay? This is why the notion, if the underlying notion of why we have to do these mass deportations as like endlessly costly, endlessly cruel, is because undocumented migrants are doing a shit ton of crimes, well then face the reality that they are not actually doing a shit ton of crimes. They're not doing any crimes at all, as a matter of fact. They're less likely to do crime than documented U.S. citizens are likely to do crime. Part of it is because they are fearful of law enforcement scrutiny. This makes a lot of sense. To be clear, I'm not American, so all my information has come through different sources that I've realized are flawed. Exactly why I'm here. Yeah, the information that I gave you is from both the Department of Homeland Security and Customs and Border Patrol, for the record, just so you understand. 81.9% were U.S. citizens for drugs in general, not just fent. Sorry, it's even higher for fent, but it's 81.9% of those who are apprehended for trafficking drugs in the U.S. are actually American citizens.
Require over 6,000 removal flights per year.
Can you explain to me why the same capitals who benefit from immigrant labor tend to be the same people who want to deport them and spread this fear? For a couple different reasons. One, because they don't think that their workers will get deported, which is a foolish assumption. But more importantly, the fact that you create this panic around undocumented migrants is exactly why you can keep them undocumented. That's it. And if you keep them undocumented, those capital owners benefit from hyper exploiting them. As long as they do not have the proper paperwork and legal recourse and can't vote, they are a permanent underclass that you can dominate. It is the very fact that undocumented labor force is kept undocumented that drives their wages and your wages down as a consequence.
In comparison, ICE had around 1,200 removal flights in fiscal year 2023. The average ICE removal flight costs about $17,000.
If you recognize their humanity, you would probably be more in favor of advocating to process them and document them. As long as you are fearful of them, fearful of the other, fearful that they are somehow, quote unquote, invading the country, you can keep them undocumented and, open to exploitation.
$1 per hour. This number could go up if private contractors who provide ICE with planes and pilots raise their prices.
But there are other assets, right? ICE has a number of its own aircraft that are already in service today. The Justice Department, the Marshal Service, has their own transportation aircraft. The scale-up need could come from the military.
Trump told NBC News in November that there is no price tag for his plan. Camerata says the cost will likely be spread out over several years because it would be impractical to deport even 1 million people a year, let alone all 13 million in a single one-time operation.
In this case, it's probably hyperbole. What I think he's trying to do is tell everyone, when I take over, the immigration law is going to be back in business. And I think it's going to have a big effect. And then it's going to be up to the public to judge whether he kept his word.
But getting enough funding from Congress will be crucial for an operation of this magnitude. Senate Republicans have said that passing a border funding bill will be the top priority next year.
Border security, more bed spaces so you don't have to release people that shouldn't be released, and more ICE agents to deport people who represent a threat to our country and shouldn't be here to begin with.
Republicans control both chambers of Congress next term, but it's a narrow majority, making spending on this scale no guarantee.
To my Democratic friends, I think if you resist rational deportation policy, you do so at your own peril.
Turning to politics this morning, and President-elect Trump making new threats to expand U.S. territory, referencing Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal, prompting swift reaction from some of our allies. White House correspondent Marialis Parks joins us now with more. Marialis, good morning.
Well, good morning. Yeah, the president-elect's recent comments drawing swift pushback from the president of Panama, the prime minister of Greenland, and others.
Just remember, right after the H-1B visa conversation that we were having, remember the old adage that, one, white supremacy harms white people as well, okay? Just like transphobia harms cis women as well, okay? Something to consider is that this process of mass deportation is incredibly costly, an incredibly costly endeavor, and yet there's money for it. There's money for endless cruelty. Where is the money for your education? Where is the money to fix your fucking roads? Where is the money to improve your infrastructure? There is no money for that. Okay? You can't have free college. Best we can do is deport 20 million migrants. What a ridiculous situation this is.
All worried about how serious Trump might be in his threats that he wants to expand U.S. territory.
Who's that? Hey,
This morning, President-elect Trump renewing threats that the U.S. should expand its territories overseas. In a flurry of social media posts on Christmas Day, Trump suggesting that the U.S. could take control of Canada, parts of Panama, and Greenland, leading to swift pushback from key allies. The president of Panama, Jose Raul Molino, calling President-elect Donald Trump's claims that Chinese soldiers are running the Panama Canal nonsense. Trump Wednesday writing on social media, "Merry Christmas to all, including to the wonderful soldiers of China who are lovingly but illegally operating the Panama Canal."
Un solo soldado chino en el canal.
There is not a single Chinese soldier in the canal, Molino saying, adding that he does want to keep a good relationship with China as well as the U.S. and that it would be more appropriate to have direct conversations with Trump once he takes office on January 20th. Molino reminding Trump every inch of the canal is Panama's sovereign territory. In the last few days, the president-elect has been railing against the canal, suggesting that the U.S. seized control, arguing that Panama is ripping off American businesses, nominating Miami-Dade Florida County Commissioner Kevin Moreno Cabrera, a longtime ally, for ambassador to Panama.
The fees being charged by Panama are ridiculous, highly unfair. This complete ripoff of our country will immediately stop.
Trump also suggesting again that Canada become the 51st state and that the U.S. should annex the Danish territory of Greenland. Greenland's prime minister writing in a statement, "Greenland is ours. We are not for sale and will never be for sale." Of course, it's not likely the U.S. takes over new territory, but in a case like Panama, sources here in Washington tell us that there is a concern of expanding Chinese influence abroad, and the president-elect might be looking for ways to counter that or to keep it in check.
Turn to that investigation into the deadly plane crash in Kazakhstan. Experts pointing to signs that the airliner...
This is so funny. Won't Canada be a blue state with a lot of electoral votes? That is, dude, peak liberalism is like, hey, man, I'm trying to see the positives here, okay? The silver lining. How will this... I know Mind Drive is joking. He's not that much of a fucking lib. I don't think anyone is that much of a lib. How would permanently annexing Canada benefit the Democratic Party? Matt Iglesias reporting from Ottawa, soon to be American territory.
May have been brought down by Russian anti-aircraft fire. Inez de la Catera has the latest. Inez, good morning.
Good morning. With the plane's black boxes have been recovered, a commission has been set up to investigate the crash. One U.S. official tells ABC News Russia could be to blame, but this morning the Kremlin once again declining to comment.
This morning, the investigation intensifying after the deadly plane crash of Azerbaijan Airlines Flight 8243. This cell phone video captures the terrifying moment when the plane is seen hurtling toward the ground, suddenly leveling out, then regaining altitude. Moments later, the aircraft quickly descending before crashing in a ball of fire. Footage from inside the cabin shows the unsettling moments before the crash with visible damage to the plane's wing. Passengers sit with oxygen masks, life vests resting on seats. Shortly after survivors were pulled from the wreckage, small holes were seen scattered across the fuselage. Now, a U.S. official and Azeri government source tell ABC News there are indications that the plane was likely hit by a Russian anti-aircraft system.
Certainly, there are lots of indicators to point towards a shoot down of that aircraft.
Andrew Nicholson runs Osprey, a company that advises carriers flying in the region. He pointed to photos of the plane's wreckage that appear to show what he says is damage consistent with surface-to-air fire.
There are no scuffs or bumps or dents that would also indicate, aircraft or birds hitting the aircraft fuselage, and also the direction of the shrapnel, which looks like it's coming from below.
The aircraft itself torn apart on impact, its tail upside down. But the Kremlin urging the public to wait for the results of the investigation. The plane taking off Christmas morning from Azerbaijan's capital, Baku, initially heading to Grozny before abruptly deviating from its course, flying across the Caspian Sea and crashing in Kazakhstan. Of the 67 people on board, 38 were killed. Remarkably, 29 survived. This morning, people gathered to mourn those lost in the crash as some survivors return home for further treatment.
And the crash prompting comparisons to the 2014 downing of a Malaysian Airlines flight, which investigators determined was shot down by Russian forces in Ukraine. Whit?
Investigators taking a close look at those similarities. Inez, thank you.
We start with a major development surrounding the plane crash that killed 38 people in Kazakhstan on Christmas Day. An investigation carried out by Azerbaijan Airlines has now blamed external physical and technical interference for the crash. It comes amid growing questions about whether or not the plane was shot down. The plane was flying from the Azerbaijani capital Baku to the Russian city of Grozny before crashing near the city of Aktau. It had diverted from an area of southern Russia where Moscow has used its air defense systems against Ukrainian drones. Experts have said that the pattern of the holes in the plane's fuselage could have been caused by damage from a Russian air defense system. The Kremlin says it's too soon to say what caused the crash. Our correspondent Alice Porter joins me now. A lot we don't know, Alice, but what do we know?
Well, this is a major development from Azerbaijan Airlines. Based on preliminary findings, they say the cause of the plane crash was external physical and technical interference, which suggests whatever happened on Wednesday certainly wasn't accidental or human error. Now, we know at least 38 people were killed and 29 people miraculously survived this plane crash. But there's huge speculation as to who was responsible for the crash in the first place. Quite quickly, as you were just saying there, people were pointing the finger at Russia and particularly warrant concern about whether Russian drones may have mistakenly shot it down. Now, a spokesman for the Kremlin said that they didn't want to give any assessments until an official investigation had made their conclusions. They have suggested that the pilot may have attempted an emergency landing after a bird strike. But today we've also been hearing from the Russian aviation authority Rosaviastia that said around the time of the crash, they're saying that Ukrainian drones were operating in the area of Grozny where the flight was bound for. So they're clearly pointing the finger at the Ukrainians.
Yeah, that doesn't look like a fucking Ukrainian drone hit it. If anything, even if you were to take that seriously, you thought that you were trying to hit a fucking Ukrainian drone and you shot the fucking plane. Even then, I don't know what the fuck Ukrainian drones would be doing in that territory, you know?
Clearly, this plane crash is going to have some quite significant geopolitical ramifications as time goes on and we get more information. But what we do know is Azerbaijan Airlines are saying that the cause of it was external physical and technical interference.
They walk through the rubble of their own city, stripped and carrying the clothes.
No, they have Ukrainian drones in Russian airspace, chat. The problem is, for the Russian narrative here, the issue is, although there are Ukrainian drones that operate within Russian airspace that, you know, I don't know what, like, how big they can get or how high they can fly. Or, like, I just don't, like, at most it still implies, fucking implies that they thought that they were trying to hit a Ukrainian drone and then hit the fucking airplane instead, you know? So it's still ultimately their fault and their responsibility. There's just no world in which like anyone else is at fault here other than Russian incompetence. Unless you get into like the really crazy conspiracy territory where you're like, America did this to make Russia look bad or some shit. And it's also something that has happened already. Like this exact same situation has happened in the past. So it's not that far-fetched. What is, however, far-fetched is if the Russian government has now decided that it's a Ukrainian drone that struck the fucking plane. I don't think that the impact and the holes that are on the fucking plane are consistent with like a drone impact. Even if it's like a drone that exploded, I don't know how the fuck a drone is capable of flying that close to a plane on altitude and vertically flying in the direction of the plane and then exploding itself. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It physically doesn't make sense. Anyway, well, let's get to our incredibly reliable and very good allies here. Another country that behaves in sometimes even more violent ways than Russia and yet gets the exact opposite treatment of Russia, Israel. Let's take a look at what Israel's up to.
off their back. Humiliation and haunting inhumanity. This footage was filmed 200 meters from Kamal Adwan Hospital, where staff say they were besieged, then raided by the Israeli military. It was one of the last functioning hospitals in northern Gaza, already devastated by intensified IDF attacks and unmanned military hardware parked at its gates. Hospital director Dr. Hussam Abu Safia says a missile launched from one of these unmanned vehicles hit a patient's room, who suffered severe injuries from a direct hit. And in another video, on a different day, a missile shakes the ward.
I'm so
all
confused.
leading up to the drone-dropped bomb.
I'm so confused. Israel would never do that. Israel, I've been told time and time again since the Al Ahli hospital bombing that Israel would never do that. Except they have done it over and over again. And this is like the remaining fucking hospital in the area. And they're still doing it.
That marked the start of the raid. Lab technician Shuruq says soldiers ordered her and her colleagues to take off their hijab. And after they refused, were made to lift their tops and pull down their trousers to be searched. The IDF says they facilitated the secure evacuation of civilians, patients, and medical personnel, labeling the hospital a Hamas terrorist stronghold, but providing no evidence to support the claim. In an interview filmed days prior to the raid, a doctor tells us there's no justification for the attacks.
This is an intensive care unit. Most of the cases here are reliant on ventilators. There is no danger here to anyone. Patients come here alone. We don't even allow anyone to accompany them.
One of the last places where patients can find care collapsed into the battleground of this unrelenting war. Yusra al-Baghir, Sky News.
Nazi shit. They're fucking Nazis. They're engaging in an act of overt ethnic cleansing. Israel also simultaneously hit Sanaa yesterday. Here's the footage released by Ansar Allah affiliated Al Mazira TV, capturing the moment Israeli forces targeted control over the tower at Sanaa International Airport, Yemen, while the Director General of the World Health Organization was in the VIP lounge. Look at this shit. It's crazy that like Sky News' coverage even has just basically turned into, yeah, they're lying. It's wild. But you know, the Al-Shifa Hospital served its propaganda purpose. The Al-Shifa Hospital was a big battleground for pro-Israeli sentiment. Has a single person that claimed that Israel would never bomb a fucking hospital, or chirping about JDAMs, by the way, or whatever the fuck, have they apologized? This is a rhetorical question. Of course they haven't. They've moved on. Now they rarely ever talk about it. Like, they just assassinated a bunch of people. Yeah, I saw that they're building menorahs in, once again, they did this last year too, during Hanukkah. Once again, tying the genocidal ambitions of a fascist ethno-state back to a fucking religion, tying Israel's violent war crimes directly to Judaism in the most unjust manner. What do you think this invokes? What kind of retaliation will occur because of this? It's retaliation that will spread the anger and resentment to Judaism.
Now to the latest on the...
However, this is beneficial to the interests of fascists in Israel anyway, because if the world is more anti-Semitic than normal, okay, because there's already a level of anti-Semitism that exists, it gives more cause for Israel to exist in the violent ways that it does. It forces Jews who otherwise do not have to fear of their own safety to potentially reconsider moving to Israel. I've said this before, and I will always repeat it. Israel benefits, like Israeli fascists benefit tremendously from anti-Semitism rising in the Western world. This way, they can have a righteous cause, okay? Yeah, it's the exact same one as last year. There you go. Chabad of Gaza putting up a menorah in preparation for Hanukkah. Scary to think that this menorah feels safer than those in friendly countries. Yeah. Zach Foster correctly says, what is more anti-Semitic than turning Jewish symbols into symbols of hate? What an incredible shot, says Hillel Fold. Talk about turning darkness into light.
Expanding conflict in the Middle East. Israel's military struck multiple targets yesterday inside Yemen, which it says were associated with rebel forces. Another Israeli strike near a hospital in Gaza killed 5 Palestinian journalists on Christmas Day. Holly Williams is covering it all for us.
Israeli airstrikes targeted Yemen's international airport, power stations and ports in a region controlled by the Houthis, a Yemeni militant group backed by Iran. The head of the United Nations World Health Organization was inside the airport during the attack. The UN said it condemned the escalation between Israel and Yemen. The Houthis have apparently ramped up their attacks on Israel in recent days.
Yeah, the 5 journalists that they executed, they didn't even fucking say that they were Hamas. Normally they would lie. This time they just said they did combat propaganda. As in, they were executed by the Israeli state specifically for the crime of doing journalism that Israel did not like. This is different from instances of violence of the past where they would at least fucking lie. Now they're not even lying. They're like, nope, we killed these guys because they're journalists and we don't like the journalism that they were doing. Think about that.
Launching ballistic missiles and drones, though most have been shot down. Throughout the war in Gaza, the Houthis say they've been acting in solidarity with Palestinians. From an underground command center, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to, quote, root out the terrorist arm of Iran's axis of evil. In the past year, as Israel's continued to pummel Gaza, it's also targeted Iran and its proxies across the Middle East, in Lebanon, Syria and Iraq. Yesterday in Gaza, Israel hit a TV broadcast van, killing 5 journalists inside, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. "What did my son do?" said one of their mothers. He was telling the news. Israel claims its strike targeted militants who were, quote, posing as journalists. For CBS Mornings, Holly Williams, Tel Aviv, Israel.
In the rambunctious world of South Korean politics.
Everything is Hamas run, guys. You don't understand. Everyone's a militant. All the babies. Speaking of the baby militants, there's a really damning article from a psychologist, a psychiatrist that worked with the IDF troops that were coming back from Gaza that goes into detail about the cruelty and the inhumanity of the Israeli occupying force. And it is one of the most insane articles that I've read. But there is one passage from the article that has lasered into the back of my mind where a commander shows up, a new commander shows up, and there's a child, a 4-year-old Palestinian, in an otherwise completely desolate Gazan street. The commander in front of the brigade walks up to the 4-year-old Palestinian, breaks his arm from his elbow, and stomps on his leg, breaking it deliberately. Okay? Or not 4 years old, 6 years old. The unit goes, "What the fuck are you doing? What is happening? Why are you doing that?" To which he responds with, "You have to punish them early on. You have to kill them immediately." He stomps on his, I think the child was 4 years old. Stomps on his stomach multiple times. It is a way to basically set the standard. Here, a new commander came to us. We went out with him in the first patrol at 6 in the morning. He stops. There's not a soul in the streets, just a little 4-year-old boy playing in the sand in his yard. The commander suddenly starts running, grabs the boy and breaks his arm at the elbow and his leg here. Stepped on his stomach 3 times and left. We all stood there with our mouths open. Look at him in shock. I asked the commander, "What's your story?" He told me, these kids need to be killed from the day they are born. When a commander does that, it becomes legit. There's another story of the 3 Palestinians that are apprehended. The 2 are killed, immediately executed. The third is stripped. The third is stripped away at this base, where people are walking by, spitting on him. They're threatening him. They're torturing him. Finally, the interrogator comes. The interrogator goes in and interrogates the fucking suspect with a gun to his head. Then he says, "Release him," because he was just a civilian. He was not a militant at all. He was just simply a civilian. But they behave in this sadistic manner because all of this sadism actually reinforces the cruelty. It normalizes this level of violence. It reaffirms your suspicion that all Palestinians are scary enemy combatants, that they are not human beings, that they're less than human, that deserve to be punished, that deserve to be ruthlessly slaughtered. In the court proceedings, that person is still logged as a militant. This is a very bold claim. It would be helpful to get the source, please. This is a very bold claim. It would be very helpful if we could get to the source of this text, please. It's Haaretz. When you leave Israel and enter Gaza, you are God. Inside the minds of IDF soldiers who commit war crimes. The practice of breaking people's arms is also incredibly commonplace. Breaking children's arms is also incredibly commonplace. Yitzhak Rabin is oftentimes whitewashed and explained as this incredible peacekeeper who was the last bastion of hope for Palestinian-Israeli union, right? He was the guy who facilitated the so-called peace process. He was assassinated for it by someone who was aligned with Itamar Ben-Gvir. Now, what's interesting about that is that Yitzhak Rabin was actually famous for implementing, when he was in charge of interior security, famous for implementing this process in the first Intifada of breaking children's arms, because stone throwing was an act of resistance, was a symbol of resistance for children. So he is the one who implemented the breaking of the children's arms. And they broke thousands of children's arms, by the way, in order to punish them for their crimes of stone tossing. Israeli society views the IDF as a moral army. The discussion of atrocities evokes emotional resistance, even though it is intellectually understood that crimes exist in every civilized society and that war crimes have been committed by soldiers in every army. Developmental psychologists have identified callous traits in young children, while social psychologists have demonstrated that authoritative directives and social pressure lead ordinary people to harmful behavior. Still, it is difficult to face the violence of callous soldiers and the brutalization of ordinary soldiers. Therefore, I am not reassured when my grandson says, "Don't worry, Grandpa, I will refuse an illegal order." Nufar Ishai Klein was the social welfare officer of the 2 mechanized infantry companies stationed in the southern Gaza Strip during the first Intifada. She talked with soldiers and they opened up to her. 4 years later, I supervised her graduate research study on the company's brutalization. She used confidential interviews to explore the moral rift, the brutalities, and the consequent mental health issues. One specific article was later published as the first chapter in an edited book, The Blot of a Light Cloud, Israeli Soldiers, Army, and Society in the Intifada, in 2012. The subsequent chapters reflected and expanded on our research. The story that I told you of the 4-year-old is from that time frame. This policy was implemented. This policy, once again, was utilized by Yitzhak Rabin, who is, I guess, in terms of like Israeli, like popular Israeli leadership, is one of the more seemingly humanitarian prime ministers.
Damn, this guy's good.